Good afternoon and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's Cablecast Post Agenda on the comprehensive plan for today, November 10th, 2025. For the record, we are joined by Councilman Coghill, Councilman Wilson, Councilman Charlin, Councilwoman Warwick, and Councilwoman Gross. With this, I would like to turn it over to our planning. Please just introduce yourself for the record, and then you all can go through your presentation.
Wonderful, thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sharonda Watley. I'm Assistant Director of Strategic Planning here in DCP.
Good afternoon, Jamil Bey, Director of City Planning.
And I'm Andrew Dash. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of City Planning.
Thank you for convening us today, Council President, and thank you for being here with us, Council people. This was important for us. We wanted to make sure that we had a chance to check in before the formal change of administrations, just to sort of update you on where we've been, what we've done, and what's next. And so this was a good time for us to get to hang out with you. So what we're going to cover today, just the value of why we're doing this, the value of a public community-driven plan, some of the wins that we've had over the last year, then get into the technical work and the engagement, sort of what we've contracted our consultants for, what they've delivered, and where we are in that stage. And so I want to start with this, how important a public community-driven plan is. So this comprehensive plan, Pittsburgh 2050, is going to set our vision for the next 25 years. We aim to create an equitable, safe, welcoming, and thriving city for all residents. And this plan will govern how we do that, alongside with residents, institutions, property owners, businesses, and community organizations. This will be our template to direct growth. And so what I wanted to start with is why this comprehensive plan matters and why doing it publicly matters. For most of Pittsburgh's history, major planning decisions weren't made through a public planning process. They were driven by private coalitions. The Allegheny Conference, did Renaissance. We've had, the Parks Plan that the Parks Conservancy was really, instrumental in, and a lot of neighborhood plans, project-specific plans. But some of those efforts produced important results, but they ultimately did not reflect broad public participation. And they failed to create that shared, unified framework for how the city grows. And so the plan Pittsburgh 2050 is our first opportunity to create the framework, and it's built directly with residents. Because it is city-led, it compels interdepartmental cooperation, aligning our investments in housing, transportation, infrastructure, and climate resilience so that we're all working for the same set of holistic, unified priorities rather than reacting issue by issue through budget cycle by budget cycle, or an opportunity presents itself and we jump on it whether it aligns with a long-term vision or not. And so this involves the voices of all residents in planning and decision-making about the plan, with a focused attention on including residents who are often not heard from. And so we're trying to create a shared vision for Pittsburgh that we want and need to work toward over the next 20 years. And so the value of this community-driven approach is captured in these critical areas. First, it establishes unprecedented legitimacy and ownership. We're going to show you where we've been and what we've done, and so far we've engaged almost 30,000 residents that have actually given us input. When residents from all 90 neighborhoods help define priorities, the plan becomes something that is understood and supported, and something that is, rather than something that is imposed. And so it ensures equitable representation, and it makes the resulting trade-offs transparent. What we invest in first, what we need to phase, and where the resources come from. And second, this public plan, it creates a long-term resilience. Leadership is going to change, from the time that we've started this till now. We've had an administration change upcoming. Neighborhood pressures will change. Federal funding patterns will change. But an adopted comprehensive plan establishes a stable foundation of public policy that ensures long-term commitments to safe housing, mobility, climate-ready infrastructure to carry forward regardless of the administration. So this is more than a document. It's how we shift from reacting to problems to proactively shaping Pittsburgh's future, with public direction, public accountability, and public benefits at its center. So with that background, we've got lots to celebrate. We've been engaging residents and stakeholders for quite some time. Our 90 to 1 photo campaign is nearly complete. We've got 88 of 90 neighborhoods represented, nobody from Hayes or Esplin yet. Our 90 to 1 survey is also nearly complete with over 1,000 responses from across the city. We're missing 5 neighborhoods: Wind Gap, the South Shore, Hayes, St. Clair, and Upper Arlington. Some of those are just lightly populated. But we've been engaged and we've been reaching out to folks. We've launched 4 surveys to date, including the 90 to 1 survey, the topic area survey, the State of Just Pittsburgh Urgent Transition and Priority Survey, and the Scenario Survey. We've hosted 7 citywide public events, including the kickoff, 2 State of Just Pittsburgh workshops, and 4 scenario workshops. We've hosted a public forum with more planned for throughout phases 4 and 5, which we'll talk about later. We've attended over 100 community meetings to share and update residents on the comp plan since before the kickoff. We've had countless one-on-one conversations. We created a trackable presence and brand identity through social media, the PGH 2050 website, the Planning for Purpose podcast, and comp plan materials at 22 bus shelters, 15 bike share kiosks, and on PRT buses and transit stations. We've engaged and activated the steering committee, all the working groups, the youth working group, the community working group, the,
Government.
The government working group, it's the interagency, interdepartment, with commissions and county folks were on that group. And we represent over 300 people who are deliberately and consistently engaged with us from across the city. And this is the work that we're doing to build this comp plan. And this is what I'm saying, the emphasis, what we've not done in our history, is created this public comp plan, this democratic plan where folks have weighed in. We've already vetted this in the process. The planning is a part of the outcome. And so that's where we are. Today, we've got 40,000 data points collected from the surveys that we talked about. And, we are, 29,600. We're well ahead of our 30,000 goal. We haven't reached our 30,000, but we're on target to blow that up. We've got 29,600 participating, engaged folks so far. And here's how they've, worked with us. And here's who's participating. We've also got a nice, sample from across Pittsburgh. They don't align with our actual demographics 1-to-1, but as you'd expect, folks from 25 to 35 to 34, or pretty much 25 to 44, they're overrepresented. They're going to come out more than our seniors, but we've engaged 10% of our seniors. And we continue to make those efforts, and we've been across neighborhoods. The city is 63.7% white. We've engaged so far of the folks that have participated, almost 56% of white folks have participated in our surveys. And so we're out here working. We're doing this work. We're bringing this back to you in ways that you can help to see how this is going to align with your vision for how Pittsburgh 2050 lines up. And I said, we've been busy. And so I'm going to turn this over to Sharonda, who's going to talk you through some of the technical stuff and what we're learning and what our consultants have delivered so far.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Bay. Very much so appreciate this time. I'm going to give just a little bit of a recap of what we have produced by phase. And so our first phase, phase 1, we completed topic learning books and learning guides for each of the 20 topics that we said that we wanted to tackle as part of the comprehensive plan. So this is all on our website at pgh2050.com. And so these start to look at existing conditions by topic area citywide. And it also starts to give us a glimpse into which policies are working, which things we can celebrate, which things are stuck, which things are maybe having a negative sort of trajectory. And so all of that is available, and it becomes resources for our community. It becomes resources for community leaders as well as community organizations. Also, as part of our phase 2, the State of a Just Pittsburgh, we began to bring together all of these topic areas under 5 pillars. And so what you're seeing here is our understanding of how each of the topic areas impact each other across the pillars, as well as across the different topics themselves. And so this is also available on our website. And this was largely what we conducted quite a bit of engagement on throughout the summer and also into the fall. And so much of our engagement, particularly for phase 2, has been conducted through workshops, through meetings, through surveys, through one-on-one conversations, and also through different citywide events. And so we've actually been having conversations with community members and community organizations about what is top of mind for them and what is the priority for them that the city needs to be addressing. And so a lot of the findings that we have here, we do love a good sticky dot exercise. And so that becomes the different data points that we've been able to collect. And so as people are reacting and responding to the information and giving us feedback, they're letting us know what are the most urgent conditions that they want the city to be addressed. And so mobility infrastructure is top of mind. Transportation mobility is top of mind. Housing variety and choice, as well as affordability, is top of mind. And then also health outcomes, as well as racial disparities and economic divisions. And then also some of the things that the folks in the city want the city to be able to address in terms of having resilient infrastructure. They want our water to be clean. They want quality modes of mobility for everyone. They want to be able to unlock the potential of vacant lands and structures across the city. They want to make sure that it is safe and comfortable to get around. They want to ensure access to healthy food, supporting homeless, as well as, again, eliminating racial disparities. And so at the end of our summer of engagement, one of the documents that was produced is the shared vision. Again, this is available on our website at pgh2050.com. And so this starts to bring together all of the feedback that we have heard across the city into 10 vision statements. And so we have started to categorize this in 4 sections or 4 divisions, including the foundations of stability and growth. And so that looks like welcoming more people to the city without losing our neighborhood identity and protecting people who have been here for the long term. That looks like building the next great industries in different areas like tech and manufacturing and education and arts. And so all of these things we were starting to hear from community members. Also creating systems of adaptation and access. And so this looks like making it easier for residents to get around the city and to be more connected. It also looks like keeping our rivers clean and our air breathable and our hillsides safe. And so we've actually started to have conversations with community about what that means. And so each of these vision statements also begin to have some ideas around policy language and how we can actually get there. Some of the things that we heard from community about belonging and making sure that there are equitable outcomes, and that looks like lifting up every culture as Pittsburgh's pride and identity, and also closing quality of life gaps. And so again, people have been very specific in what they've been sharing with us and what they've been telling us as part of this process. And then lastly, governing for lasting change. So this looks like being able to coordinate across systems and sectors and geographies, and also being able to govern with trust and accountability to power a bold vision for ourselves as Pittsburgh residents. And so in phase 4, the phase that we are currently in, we are now beginning to test future development scenarios. So those 10 vision statements become a little bit of a North Star for us. And so any sort of development opportunity or any sort of development scenario that we select should be in support of those vision statements that we have been able to understand from the community. And so as part of phase 4, again, we are starting to test development scenarios, and obviously we're looking at our topography. Our hills and our valleys have a great impact on our development opportunity. We're also looking at existing land uses, any past or legacy harms such as redlining or environmental justice areas, as well as any past plans that have been done as part of studying the city. So all of the past plans that we have been able to collect are also on our website at pgh2050.com. And so that's everything from city plans to neighborhood plans to plans that maybe external organizations have conducted. And so we're taking all of that into account as we start to pose the question with the community, well, how do we grow? So how do we grow as a city? So what if we led by welcoming residents into the city? What if we grew by leading with jobs and economic opportunity? Or what if we grew by leading with climate resilience? And so as we are having conversations with the community right now as part of phase 4 and a part of engagement, we're actually starting to pose these conversations with them and actually starting to share thoughts around benefits and trade-offs of what this could potentially look like. And so we have developed 3 scenarios as part of phase 4. The scenario A is the attainable city. So this is the housing first scenario. So what if we created great investments in creating housing density and affordability? What does that look like, and how does that grow the resident base? Scenario B, which is the prosperous city, which is jobs first. So what if we created great investments in jobs and economic opportunity? And then scenario C, the climate ready city. So if we deeply invested in resilience, and what does that look like? And so you can start to think about these scenarios as recipes. And so each recipe has these same sort of 4 ingredients in different balance. And so residents are actually starting to engage with what that could look like across the different scenarios. Around housing density and diversity, residents are discussing what it might look like to have more housing across all neighborhoods versus concentrating new housing near work or economic development centers, versus having housing in climate safe spaces, as we are kind of talking about what that could look like for growth for the city. Similarly, residents are also grappling with jobs and business growth. And so they are considering what does it look like if we have jobs in existing job centers versus expanding our current job centers versus creating jobs or job centers in more resilient areas across the city. And then similarly with climate resilience, residents are able to respond and react to some ideas, big ideas around greening the entire city versus creating resilient business districts versus having a city that is deeply resilient across the entirety of all 90 neighborhoods. And then lastly, mobility. We know that none of this will work without having the appropriate infrastructure and connectivity. And so residents are also weighing the pros and cons and benefits and trade-offs of having a fully connected city, a city or a region that is connected around economic connectivity versus having a more compact mobility network. And so what is next for us? Again, we just now started our phase 4. We just now had 4 public workshops about 2 weeks ago, and we're continuing to engage with the community around these ideas and these big ideas. And so where we are today, this is a little bit of a timeline. Again, we're in phase 4. We've had the scenario content uploaded onto our website as well as our digital survey for scenarios. We've hosted a number of the working group members to date around these same big ideas for growing the city. And so we are hoping to develop a preferred scenario sometime over the winter. So taking into consideration all of the engagement feedback, All of the data and research, all of our analysis and synthesis will go towards helping us to define a preferred development scenario. And so we do think that out of the 3 scenarios, it will be some sort of mix or match of the different components of those scenarios. And so a lot of our engagement has been focused on that to date. And then what's next for us? So this is just a little bit of a snapshot of what's next as part of phases 4. I'm sorry, you can't see that. As part of phases 4 and 5. So we will continue to deeply engage. We will identify a preferred scenario. We will also continue to host citywide workshops and public forums in phases 4 and 5. We will create the proposed future land use map. We will have land use recommendations as well as the subsequent policies, goals, and strategies to achieve that preferred scenario. We'll also have an implementation plan, so that lays out in terms of timing and investment which projects or policies we do first, next, and last. And then lastly, we'll also have a digital dashboard to help us track our progress as part of PGH 2050. And so we'll develop those metrics as part of tracking that. All right, it's a lot of information. So we do want to make sure that we leave time for discussion. Any thoughts and questions and reactions to the work to date and to what you're hearing?
Thank you. We'll turn it over to members. Councilman Coghill?
Sure, thank you. So we don't have hard copies of the information, right? That we just put up? Okay, can you go back to that last slide? Just the color graphic with the key next to it. What does the purple mean, and what does that mean? You see? I can't see from here.
The purple, the lavender color, utilities.
Lavender, right. Mm-hmm. What is that?
Utilities.
Utilities, okay.
He just emailed it.
Oh, okay, good.
And to all members, you should have it in your email now.
Good. Okay, so my first question is this. May 13th, we were in Beachview, I understand? I don't recall that. Do you remember where that was and what that meeting was about? May 13th?
Oh, are you referring to the meetings and events that we have on our website for engagement?
I guess so. I'm getting texts from residents saying, I don't remember May 13th meeting, so I'm just trying to verify if there was one for them.
Can you
I can't recall myself.
I'm trying to pull that up
Thank
right
you.
now.
Okay. So we're in phase 4 and there are 5 phases?
Yes.
Okay, so we're nearing the end.
We're just beginning phase 4, yeah. So we still have another 9.
So we're like 3/4 of the way through. Okay. Just give me your thoughts on this too. Like this is obviously a template for the next 25 years, correct? Okay. So I hear the presentation and everything, but what let me just ask you this. In District 4, what do you feel the feedback has been, what we expect or the residents of District 4 expect in the next 25 years overall? Do you have anything? Just to generalize it, it doesn't have to be to T. I'm just wondering what my district's kind of, what they foresee.
That's a really great question. We actually do have a lot of our feedback separated by division based on the summer of engagement as well as our State of Adjust Pittsburgh. I think top of mind are safer hillsides and also housing and commercial activity.
From District 4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you speak about investments in jobs, like, when you say you're going to gear the template as to showing, I guess, future generations that we're, expand on that. I guess I don't understand that. When you say, oh, we're going to, imagine if we lead as to, economic investment in jobs in the city of Pittsburgh, like, what's that entail?
So we've been able to identify a number of sectors where we think we can experience some real job growth. And so that is energy innovation, clean tech, arts education, as well as eds and meds. And so as we are looking at job growth, we're not only looking at the jobs that require a degree, but also well-paying jobs that may not require a degree, but you can still have a good salary associated with it. And so that could be like light manufacturing and different things like that. So we wanted to have a good mix.
And that's taken from information from meetings and from the public.
Yeah, from feedback from the public, but also as part of our scenarios, we also started to look at peer cities and started to understand some of the things that they were able to do to make dramatic shifts in their economies based on some of those sectors. And so we've started to kind of compare that data.
Right.
So
Part
of that is also thinking about, well, what are our strategic assets that we can sort of foster? We have eds and meds here. How can we think about what are the auxiliary jobs that if we thought about, Pitt's going to do what Pitt does, how can we think about making it easier for Pitt to do some of their sourcing locally? What can we sort of seed in those industries rather than having them procure things from outside of the area? So like sort of taking advantage of what's already here rather than thinking about attracting things that have no, we don't have a lead on.
All right. Initially I'm still not supportive of, the comprehensive plan. Obviously we're, 2/3 finished with the plan now, so I don't see any other choice other than to see it through. But what is your, so I guess, Dr. Bay, is what I'm asking you this. This should be a guide, is what the reason why we're having this comprehensive plan. The only thing I supported about it, I will tell you, is the fact that I felt like you had to have one in order to solicit federal funds. Correct? I mean, is that a kind of a requirement, isn't it? Or it helps?
It helps.
It helps for grants and things of that nature.
Right. And so an example of when you and I talked earlier as to why to think about a comprehensive plan, so in our district, I live in your district, one of the things that we hear and see, we have landslides, we have flooding, that's an issue. As we think about what mitigation looks like, how do we think about that in a way that considers, well, where are people going to live? Where are people going to work? What's that going to do for mobility? So as we're having conversations about, what are our principles to guide buyouts? How do we think about those things comprehensively? Right. And if we just think, we're going to raise money and buy folks out and not thinking about, well, where are the kids going to go to school? Like that's the idea of a comprehensive plan, thinking about these things at the same time.
Right. And ultimately, this is like a document to show, like you said, Dr. Bay, administrations change, council members change all the time, right?
Right.
But ultimately, this is a guide or a document that we feel that we're getting feedback from all city residents from each corner of the city to help guide administrations in the future as to what Pittsburgh sees itself in the future.
Right.
Is that correct? Does that
Yes.
sound right? Okay. Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect and confidence in you, Dr. Bay, I will tell you, and I appreciate all of our many conversations in the past. I look forward to seeing it complete. I would be lying if I told you I felt like it was worth $6 million. I just don't, especially at a time when we're struggling to put vehicles or keep vehicles on the streets. We are through how much of that money, can we say? Do we know any figure? I'm not looking to pull it back.
Right.
I'm just
No.
asking.
I don't have the exact number, but I can get that for you by the end of the day.
Yeah, okay. Not necessary.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm just curious as to if you knew offhand. Okay, that's really it for me, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And Councilman,
Yes.
to your first
Sure,
question,
yeah.
on the map, we have 5 events that are listed that took place in Beachview.
Yes.
One specifically, at Casa San Jose, one where we did office hours at the library in Beachview, 2 that were part of the mini grants that were part of the summer of engagement, one that was at Fanucci Park, one that was at, with the Coalition of Organizations for Sawmill Run, and then there was an event at the Healthy Active Living Center. And I think that Healthy Active Living Center event was the one that you might have mentioned or been more specifically mentioning, because that was May 16th,
16th,
of this year. So
Yeah. How about May 13th? What do you have?
I don't have anything for the May 13th date specifically. Like I said, I assume that was probably the one that you were that you were speaking to, because that was
Yeah.
the one closest to that date.
Okay.
The other meeting, that was the first meeting that took place in Beachview. Those other meetings took place later on this year.
Yeah, so sounds like plenty of engagement in Beachview. And as Sharonda said, mostly the feedback from my district specifically was hillside flooding, business districts, safety, public safety.
Yeah, that came up, safety and perceived safety, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Councilman Wilson and Councilman Charlotte?
Yeah, it's been questions around, thank you, Chair. Has some questions around the funds being spent. So, as of today, how much has been spent?
I don't have the exact number, but I can
Okay.
get it to you.
So the 6 million was allocated originally, right?
5.9.
5.9, okay. And we don't, I heard 3/4 of the way done with the plan. Does that mean that 3/4 of the money as well? Mm-hmm. And who all has been paid? Like there's large entities that we're paying, right?
Our consultant team, as well as our community working group members and our youth working group members.
Okay. And then the main consultant is Common Cause and HRNA, right?
For the technical work, the main consultants are HRNA and Urban American City. And for the engagement, the main consultants are Common Cause and Sasaki.
Mm-hmm. And the finished product would be presented to us at what point?
Say that again?
When did you say the whole plan would be done again? What was the date?
Over the summer.
Over the summer.
Mhm.
This.
So we're hoping to have recommendations in a draft plan in phase 5.
Okay. Okay. I did have some concerns that I'm just going to air it out here. And it does deal with the leadership of the planning department and who's actually conducting. You're conducting the study, like you're, managing the whole process correctly.
She's the project manager.
She reports to you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I tried to put this in an email where we could talk about this, so we're on the same page. But I'm not seeing the response. And basically, I was at a community meeting recently, and I had a lot of people mad at me about the RCO program. So when we talk about engagement in the city of Pittsburgh, we have community groups in these RCO programs, like they're registered community groups. And you're working with them on the comp plan, right?
Not directly. I mean, the RCO groups, are typically groups that are engaged, and a lot of those have sort of weighed in and said they'd like to host us. Some of these meetings that we've had have been through RCOs.
So you've been working with them?
Yes, for the
Okay,
most
good.
part.
So there's a communication that I have that was sent to, it says, "Dear community partners," comes from Jamil Bey. And it says, "As many of you know, many of you have likely seen or heard, Councilwoman Teresa Cal Smith has introduced legislation to eliminate the Registered Community Organization program. One of several proposals she and her allies have advanced under her ideas to," this is italicized, "make Pittsburgh great again." Does this come from you?
That's from me.
Okay. Can you explain that?
You want me to read it again? I mean, so Teresa Kell Smith had proposed that we stop the RCO program. I sent you the timeline of her 3-year effort to do that. As a part of me reaching out, we asked, okay, can we have some time to engage the RCOs about that? She said she didn't want to give us any time to do that. And so I sent an email out to the RCOs that said, hey, this is coming down the road. So what?
The part where it says that her and her allies. So who are the allies?
The folks that she works with. That
Who's that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
You just said in the email to all our community groups.
Yes.
Okay. So you have no idea what you're talking about, that you said this to our community groups. And then furthermore, you say that her and her allies are doing this to make Pittsburgh great again. Do you know what that slogan means?
Make Pittsburgh great again?
Yeah.
What do you mean, do I know what it means?
You wrote it.
Yes, I know what it means.
What
To
does it
make
mean?
Pittsburgh great again. We're developing a comprehensive plan to make Pittsburgh great.
Okay.
That's where I'm standing on this. What is the?
It seems like it. So that's what you guys are saying in the. Are you saying that to the?
No, this is
when you
look.
go to the comp plant, like you're setting up a table and it says "Make Pittsburgh Great Again."
No, we're trying to. We haven't done this yet. Pittsburgh has not been great for a lot of people. This is our first attempt to make the comprehensive plan. Councilwoman Kell Smith has, in what she described as, here, this was a deliberate effort to sort of cut the knees out of the RCO program from my perspective. We invested a lot of time in building relationships with RCOs.
Yeah.
That's a part of how we work and how
That's
we
why I'm
engage
asking these
communities.
questions, yeah.
Yes, okay. And so this is her effort to make Pittsburgh great again. And yes, it's a wink at Make America Great Again. And it's a wink at what's happening politically. And it's a wink to, we're going to have government without input. And this is an example of that. And so, yes.
So you're making a wink about a council
right,
member.
Right. I'm
a
aligning,
council member
her
and the allies.
actions and my description and
Okay.
perception of them as the way that the country is going right now with the political ideas
The Republicans, the Trump administration.
Well, I didn't say that.
Well, that's what you're saying here.
Well, what I'm
Sounds like
saying
it.
is very similar.
When you take out Pittsburgh, put America,
and
it
if
sounds
you,
like
and,
it.
And if you read on, it says something about she does not want or does not appreciate community voice in this process.
I mean, I think
which
that's pretty-
again is very similar to what the Republicans are doing. I didn't say she was a Republican, but this is making Pittsburgh great again.
I don't know. It sounds pretty appalling to me, the way you.
It sounds
are
pretty.
appalling. Yeah.
Who's appalled?
I mean, you can't answer the question who the allies are. You're just making it up. And you're talking to our community groups. And then we go, I never saw this email, so I could walk into the community group and they're wondering what's going on.
Let's assume that when
And
I
you're
speak
supposed to
to,
run
when I
this. You're
speak
supposed to
to-
run this whole comprehensive plan.
when I
Like,
speak,
I just don't understand how, we put you in charge to do this, and then we're all blindsided walking into our community groups about, make Pittsburgh great again.
well, when I speak to Councilwoman Kell Smith and she tells me that she's hearing from people and this is what she wants and she's frustrated with the RCO program, I'm assuming that there are allies. Do you know what allies are? Okay, there are people, she's not doing this by herself. She has allies that are thinking about this. She never identified them, and so I didn't identify anybody by name. But she has mentioned that people told her about this. She talks about this. These are her allies.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find this pretty unacceptable. So I kind of question the whole thing that's going on here based on this.
We have so you're questioning the comprehensive plan.
You're the leader.
Right, you're questioning the comprehensive.
I'm questioning the comprehensive plan based on.
Pittsburgh has a broad range of political perspectives. There are people who voted for Trump in Pittsburgh. There are people who want to see Pittsburgh made great again, like that agenda. And so this is not surprising that some folks fall somewhere on that spectrum.
I think it's surprising that the city plan director would go and send this email and not
I think
copy
it's
and-
surprising and appalling that a council person would want to snatch the program out from under people without a public process.
I agree.
Okay.
Any other questions about the PGH 2050?
This is about the PGA.
Councilman does have the floor.
Was this the same? Wait, was this? Did you also remember? Wasn't there like? Was there also a moment whenever you said, "Let's vote on this now"?
Yeah, she did that to me before, yeah.
Was that?
Yep.
Okay, this is the second time. Like, we go back. When was that?
It was
We were
last
talking
year.
on the comp plan.
Yeah.
We were trying to get to something where all the council members are talking, and then it was suggested. I believe it was you,
Yes.
Ms. Wiley said, "I think it's time to vote now." And we were trying to deliberate about it. So it's like the second time that this has happened where we are literally discussing something. Yeah,
What happened?
I mean it's on film. I don't know. It's just people know what we're talking about.
You mean the fact that she asked if we're ready to move on? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just
she's
have to
trying
tell-
to make
I know
peace
I'm not sharing, Mr. Chair, but if you would please explain to the speakers what is protocol and format at a post agenda, I would appreciate it.
Sure. protocol and format is if a council member asks a specific person a question and they have the ability to respond, another member may say, may I also respond, and the council member can say yes or no.
All right. So, yeah, no, I just take a big issue with, what you did there. So, I think it's pretty disappointing, and I expect better from our appointed directors.
Perhaps if we had more input from our land use chair, we could have avoided a lot of this.
Is that what we're doing here?
Is what we're doing here.
What's the input you wanted from me? Is that what you're doing here?
I don't know the protocol here, so I'm going to defer to you.
You want an input on the RCO program? You want to meet about that? Is that what's going on?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So,
You're the one that said it. You said that you wanted, if you had more input from the land use chair. Can you explain that?
I've reached out to each council person and tried to set monthly meetings and I've tried to keep those meetings. My assistant would send out, hey, what's the agenda? And we did that. And you, more than anyone, has canceled our meeting. You've moved our meeting. And so a lot of this process, had we had more direction and input, someone who is responsible for this, that we could have met with regularly to sort of work through some of these things, we might be further along.
So in those meetings, I found them very unproductive. I felt they were very meetings that basically we ended up having with Assistant Director Dash and also Corey Lehman. Mm-hmm. So I essentially thought it was more useful to have meetings with them. And ultimately, those meetings circled around how we could come to an agreement, or how inclusionary zoning could get back on the agenda. I wasn't the one that was, in control of the bill. So, it seemed like you all wanted to meet just because you had some, political agenda without ever really coming to council. But in terms of actually, coming to the council and actually talking about that, but in terms of actually some substance, you never brought any substance. And so I've never actually been the land use chair. I've actually have seen very little work coming from your side in terms of legislation. Whenever the last administration was here, I would be introducing legislation all the time. And actually, it was very disappointing as the chair of the land bank to know that you didn't know that your signature was on reports that was holding up purchases of property. We discussed that here last year at the budget hearing. So if we want to walk through all the disappointment from this side of the table, we can do that. We can also do it offline. But to try and insult a council member about something you know nothing about, because, I don't know, you're just basically absent most of the time whenever we're having a real discussion. I just see that as a real, disappointment that you want to get on this road, but I don't know. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just find it completely inappropriate that you would take the angle of, sending this email out to insinuate that there's council members here that are somehow connected to the MAGA movement. It's just, I think it's unacceptable. And then you would talk about that to our community groups without telling us that you did that. That's what I want to talk about, and how I think that the leadership here in city planning, under your direction, hasn't been going down the best path it could have. And we see that here as how you react to my questioning your email. So, I don't have any further questions.
Councilman Charlin?
Yeah, and I again thank the other members for acknowledging it is not up to our invited guests to move the conversation on. It's up to us to do that, and hope that can continue at least for the rest of this meeting. I want to start off kind of with another question that this was not where this was going today, but when you say that Councilwoman Cale Smith's allies want to make America great again, or make Pittsburgh great again, am I one of those allies?
I didn't name you.
No, but you had people in mind. Was I one of them?
I did not have any other council people in mind when the language was from when I spoke to Councilwoman Cale Smith, welcome, and, she had talked about, the conversations that she were having with residents and RCO members. Okay. And so that's what I was, that's who I was describing as her allies, the folks that informed her opinion on that.
So folks from her district?
I can only extrapolate from what she shared with me on that, so that I don't have a name list.
Okay.
And I don't know where the people were from.
And I will certainly let you defend yourself here, but I would say that
I'm pretty good at it.
you are. You don't need my help, but I would say that Councilwoman Cale Smith was elected by members in her district to do what they needed in her district. That's what she's here for. That's what all of us are here for. So it is incredibly insulting to hear that, and we can all make our own conclusions of what you meant there. Back to the comprehensive plan, I would like to ask a couple questions about this. So in your phase, I believe it was phase 2, you had scenarios listed. It might be helpful to see the slides there. We don't have them in front of us. But there was kind of this idea of resiliency, mobility, density, and all these ideas were in conflict. Who came up with that concept?
In terms of the scenarios?
Yeah, these scenarios where density is in conflict with mobility, which generally speaking, again, I don't have a degree in urban planning, but are generally densities are also very good at mobility. Mm-hmm. So how are we defining that they're in conflict? Was it something that we're paying a consultant to come up with?
So I wouldn't use the word necessarily conflict, but they do have to
Well,
be
you do
in
have to pick
balance
one or
with
the
each
other. There, it is, you don't get to pick there's not a gradient. There's picking one versus the other here. So how was that idea decided? How do we...
So we're not picking between scenarios. We're exploring the components of each scenario. So we're not saying the preferred scenario is one of the 3 that we have listed. It's the components. And so we do think that the preferred scenario will be some combination of all 3.
Is New York City a dense or a mobile-friendly city?
In comparison to Pittsburgh?
No, in comparison between the 2 adjectives.
It is dense and it is mobile, yeah.
So aren't they the same thing? So why I don't understand why we're deciding among different ideas here.
So it's the balance of the ideas. So we're not saying one or the other.
Who did we pay to come up with this idea, or was it an internal decision?
So we worked with our technical consultant team to look at these 3 scenarios.
So that was like the $3.5 million contract. Okay. Another question. So you've talked about this rate of growth of our peer cities. How do we determine what our peer cities are? How do we determine what an aspirational city is? How do we make the choice of what cities we're extrapolating on? How was that decided?
Mm-hmm. Our methodology is on our website. One of the things that we looked at when we were talking about peer cities versus aspirational cities, these are cities that might have similar size, similar population, similar industrial sort of heritage and history, and so there's some similarities there between peer cities. The aspirational cities are cities that have made great gains in population growth or in job growth. And so those are the sort of the brackets that we are comparing Pittsburgh to as we're looking at scenarios.
Would you care to I guess share that with council members? I would like to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we can share the list.
And again, similar to this, who came up with these scenarios, I would like to know who is making those decisions and kind of what expertise they have in that. Another question I have for you is, what parts of the city are participating? So this has been my major criticism with your planning department. It has been that it is in a silo and it doesn't work well with other departments. We have an Oakland plan that was not, the Oakland plan did not go to Public Works and ask, is this feasible? Can we actually install this here? Do we have the land? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the plumbers? What departments have been engaged? And I would like, verbally, if you tell me what departments have been engaged, but personally, I would like actual personnel that have been engaged and when they've been engaged. If you could send that to council members by email.
I can do that. Yeah.
Which departments have you engaged?
So our government working group is every department here in the city. So that looks like DOMI, IMP, Public Works, Parks and Rec, the mayor's office at the current mayor's office. That also looks like public safety. So all of the department leadership.
Not city council?
City council has representation on the steering committee.
Okay. I would very interested to find out who the personalities are on there and if they actually have the ability to say what you're proposing is feasible and something that we can do, or if it's just something we're kind of making up as these hypotheticals here.
I can share that.
Yep, I would appreciate that. So what events have been held in my district?
Citywide events?
No, just things that have engaged my residents in District 3.
I think Andrew has them pulled up here, but we did host 2 of the public citywide events over the summer at IBEW. Is that your district?
IBEW is my district. Amazingly, I didn't know about the event at IBEW, until maybe 2 or 3 days beforehand when you had the briefing in the large conference room. You didn't engage my office and that's in the Southside Community Council didn't know about it. Chamber of Commerce, Southside Can, nobody from that area knew about it. I'm curious, like, how we're paying an arm and a leg for this engagement team. How are they getting the word out?
I'll answer your question fully. We had 2 events at IBEW, one in July and one in August. We have been working through our community working group as well as steering committee members and government working group members to help get the word out. We've used quite a bit in terms of social media, flyers, emails, phone calls, community networks, and things like that.
I think that it almost feels like any engagement that's happened in my district is in spite of the outreach that's happened, not because of the outreach. Like we were very lucky that we were able to get members to participate. Even on your steering committee, we have one of the neighborhoods that you've struggled to have representation from is on your steering committee. So I just. Is it all smoke and mirrors? Like, what are we actually doing here?
So thank you, Andrew. He just shared with me that we've hosted or had and participated in 27 events in Council District 3 and also 22 south of the rivers. So we have been keeping a running list of all of the places and events that we've hosted and places where we shared about the comp.
When you say that, do you mean coming to a regularly scheduled community meeting?
It could be anything from a citywide event to a regularly scheduled community meeting, a festival, one-on-one conversations. We have a full list.
Director Dash, would you mind telling me what those 27 events are?
I mean, I could list them all if you'd like. They're
Yes,
all
please.
They're all available on the website.
Let's go through them. Yeah.
So, going from, right on the border of your district, or maybe I'll start in Oakland. There was a, conversation, with their urban planning club. There was a conversation with their school of social work. There was a conversation. Let's see. We tabled at Calliope's Under the Tent at Shenley Plaza series, which was one of the mini grants under the Summer of Engagement. We held 2 meetings with OPDC. One was a Comp Plan 101 event that they had hosted where we spoke on the comp plan, and then had another event. And then the other one in Oakland is that we participated in the Be a Good Neighbor block party. So those are all listed as events in your section of Oakland. In addition, I'm just going to try to quickly go through these. There was, we were at the Expo for the Green Building Alliance as a citywide event that occurred in your district. We were at the Color Park for the Graffiti Jam. We were at Southside Neighbor Night. We were at the Planning Forum.
When were you at Neighbor Night?
May 21st.
Okay.
We presented at the Planning Forum relative to the comprehensive plan. We were present and tabled at a movie in the park at Ormsby. We had, as Assistant Director Watley listed, the workshops at IBEW Local 5. We presented to the Southside Slopes Neighborhood Association in October. We participated in Housing Authority's Community Health Awareness Day in Arlington Heights. We presented at the Arlington Civic Council.
When did you do that?
That was October 6th. Participated in the Hilltop Urban Farm, their cleanout day. One of our many grant events was Goat Fest, in Southside Park. There was a movie in the park at Grandview, which I know borders your district, and Councilwoman Cale Smith's. The Zone 3 Public Safety Meeting. Abiding Missions Weekly Breakfast Fellowship. Sorry, I don't know the details on that. Which was in Allentown. Participated in the Hilltop Alliance Summit. Lavender Lux Pride event.
In what way did you participate in the Hilltop Alliance Summit?
Again, I'd have to refer to the staff that participated in it because I'm going off of what we have
we
publicly available.
Dinner together. Okay. I mean, what I'm hearing here is that these are first off, I'm cute. Gotta check my notes here because these are all community meetings that I've been at. I did not notice any level of engagement more than, my neighborhood planner being there, which is wonderful. I love when he's at meetings with us. But in terms of like engagement, they were just at a community meeting.
Yeah, and these are not, the intention of these events is not that there was a planner that was present at a meeting. The intention of these events, and we can get you the details, was that there was some active engagement that was occurring, whether by a member of the planning team, whether by a member of the community working group, whether by a steering committee member or others. And Assistant Director Watley can correct the record or add anything that relative to that, and we can get those details to you.
I really good attendance at my community meetings. Have not seen this happen once. So, and then when you're like, oh, we're at the Green Building Alliance in your district, that's not my district that's being served by that. That's the Green Building Alliance that's being served by that. When you're at, a variety of Pitt Urban Club events, I represent most of the University of Pittsburgh. Not everything that happens at the University of Pittsburgh is D3 residents. Generally speaking, that list, I think, I applaud Movies to the Park. I think that's probably some of the better examples I've heard there. But the Arlington Civic Council, they certainly weren't engaged. Again, you have this engagement team that we've spent all this money on, but I've never met one of them. I've never met a new face that's come through the city from the comprehensive plan process. These are the same, neighborhood planner that I've worked with regularly here. Unless they're incognito, they're not in the same places that I'm at, and I'm 16 recurring monthly meetings every month. So I don't know what that looks like. I guess the other thing is just, so what you've explained so far in this list, what is it that's actually unique to Pittsburgh in the things that you described? What are the things, if I went and Googled right now, make a comprehensive plan for a city, what would look different about that Google search and what you've presented thus far? What is it that is actually tailored for Pittsburgh itself?
I believe our zoning and our land use map, because of the topography, we are on track to be either the first or one of the only cities that has zoning associated with topography. So our topography allows for specific types of density and different types of specific uses. And so many other cities obviously are flat. And so any sort of use can kind of go anywhere, but our topography, our zoning will be tied to our topography as land use. And so there aren't any other cities across the United States that that have a zoning based topography.
We're the only city that zones for hillsides.
For development of hillsides.
Well, and I think
No, I'm sorry. Like I can't. What?
So we will either be the first or one of the few.
No other cities have hillsides.
Go ahead, Andrew.
if you
Go ahead.
No, I don't think that we're claiming that at all. I think what we are claiming is that basing our both current and future land use and how we develop on those, by topography, and leading with the idea that different topographical situations that we have here in the city do define how we develop from a density perspective is different than how most cities approach this in their comprehensive plan.
I guess I'm gonna have to do some calling around again. I think it's such a bold statement there. I guess what I'm seeing is that when we went through the list of like things that Pittsburghers want, we want access to jobs, we want access to nutritious meals, we want environment that doesn't flood us away. Those things. That's true for every city. I'm just trying to find the thing that is like actually something that is unique, that's novel, that we've gathered out of this process so far. Something that makes this worth $6 million.
So I think our vision statements are very specific to Pittsburgh. And because we have such unique vision statements, we have the beginnings of policy language associated with them. And so, yes, people want to be able to eat well and live well and all of those things. But I think being able to hear that and be able to present that to you all as a body and as well as to Planning Commission in a way that is clear and in a way that guides development is what's important and what's unique.
Can you give me a vision statement that you think is, particularly unique? One of the ones that you're mentioning that are unique to us.
Having industry as iconic as our previous steel industry. And so if we take the approach of really focusing on those additional tech industries and job industries and building it up in the same way that we did for steel and different things like that, I think that is very unique to the city.
That wouldn't apply to the rest of the Rust Belt?
Not necessarily. I don't know what the other cities in the rest are focusing on in terms of job growth and industry.
I mean, I think most cities have those iconic previous industries, in some level or another. I don't see that being a unique thing for us, at all. Steel might be our legacy here, but we're not the only city that has, an iconic manufacturing history here. So, again, I think my questions kind of explain how I feel about this process and how I view the work that it's been done so far. Want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this, but would like to see more of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Warwick?
Yeah, thanks. So this has been a more difficult meeting than I maybe anticipated. I guess first, just to kind of address the letter that went out. I get that things have been tense, right? We had a very tense election. and emotions have run high across the city. And I understand that things are said, including myself, right? Like in the election, right? Like various members sort of made statements, but I think it's important to make the distinction that electoral things, for example, that I may have, statements that I may have made as a political person are not statements I would have made like in a work, in like at the table or in a community meeting. And so I think maybe that is part of the concern, and it's difficult, right, in this work that we do. It's difficult to because it is so political by nature, but I wouldn't want a department head or you know what I mean, sort of writing something about me. At any rate, I think ultimately it's it sort of it harms the work, right? Because it hurts the department, it hurts the work that we're trying to do. At any rate, but again, these are just sort of move forward and kind of learn as we go. But at any rate, but coming back to the plan, and and we've talked a lot about the plan. We've met a number of times about it, and everyone at City Planning really is so wonderful, like everyone at the department, just on a personal level. And I know that I was very excited about the plan. As you know, we had community meetings at the beginning of the year. I promoted the plan to my neighborhood groups. My neighborhood groups were excited about it. But at least in my district, like I haven't seen the engagement that the engagement that at least to me, my understanding of this plan is that we were going to be engaging folks who have never been engaged in city government before, right? And I haven't seen that. And I understand that there's lots of, but having a table at an event is not that's not engagement. Right now, I did go to the Energy Innovation Center, and that was a great meeting, right? And that actually felt like what I sort of thought all of the engagement was going to feel like, right? Like people sitting at tables having real conversations, and that was a great meeting. But I also will say that in that meeting, there were lots of familiar faces, right? So I didn't see the folks that I normally, I saw folks that I would anticipate seeing at these meetings, which is great, right? We want to hear from the people that are engaged in our city. But what I haven't seen so far is, and what I think that, and again, I don't want to put this on the planning team, right? Because, and also where I have seen tabling, right? Because I have seen you guys. I've seen you guys at events, right? I've seen you at tables. I've seen you, but it has been planning staff, right? It has been the neighborhood planners. And I think a big question, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but is just like, where are these consultants? Like, we paid a lot of money to have people do this work because our planning team had other work to do, right? And that this was such a big thing that we couldn't do it in-house. And I guess I sort of thought that, like, if there was going to be a big meeting I'll pick two communities that are sort of kind of left behind, two very different communities in my district that are often kind of left out of the conversation. And that would be like Glen Hazel and the 31st Ward, right? Two very different communities that are rarely rarely are engaging one group, the 31st Ward, that loves to come out. Like when you go over there and you host a meeting, they show up, right? They want to give their thoughts. And then the other one where it's just, folks have so much to do with their kids and their, and work and transportation issues and just general, struggles in day-to-day life, that it is very hard to get them out to a meeting. And at least I had hoped to see more engagement there. And that's just speaking for my district. It does feel like lots has been spent on marketing materials. And I'm someone who used to work in marketing. And I know that marketing is expensive, right? Websites, videos, the surveys, I'm seeing like a photo campaign, and all of this is nice to promote the plan, but I feel like there's sort of heavy on the promotion. And as far as the surveys, I know the 90-to-1 survey, now that's like the 3-question one, right? That's the one where you're like, what's your neighbor, what do you like what's your favorite memory? What do you like about the neighborhood? Maybe what do you want to see in the future? I think that the other surveys, which I took, at least one of them, I don't know if it was the scenario survey, it was maybe about a 10-minute survey. Very good survey, right? Multiple choice questions, going into these different, what's most important to you. That I feel is the survey. If we could get 30,000 people to take that survey, that would be, that would bring us some, some really valuable information. But as far as like the working groups, and again, I get it, like 300 highly engaged people. I'm sure that if we all collectively across our districts brought in the folks who are at every meeting, right, we could, that those would maybe be the 300 faces that we kind of recognize just being in Pittsburgh government. And I don't know I don't know where to go from in phase 4, but I mean, just I think it's difficult when we hear like that all this time and we sort of have these like priorities of like housing and clean water and economic opportunity and better mobility. I mean, again, like that does feel like stuff that we know we all need. And what I would hope to hear are maybe more specifics. And again, I can only speak to my communities, but like, have we heard, like, have we heard what a single mom in Hayes, what kind of transportation she needs to get where? Do you know what I mean? So that we can then, like, does she need it's those kinds of specifics, right? In that I think would. I'm just a little. I guess I'm still a little unclear on how a plan is going to get written based on just kind of these overarching things that are important to people. But yes, right? Like yes, housing is important, clean water, mobility is important. But if we don't have from the residents, like, I live in the South and I work in wherever, or maybe there's, we have like a large swath of residents who live in the South or live in the, whatever section of the city, and we can see that these residents, a large number of them are working in, I don't know, Oakland or downtown or maybe somewhere else, and they can't get, you know what I mean? And this is what they need to do to get there. Then without those kinds of specifics, or like a large number of residents in this section of the city have water running into their houses, and so we can see, right? Like, I feel like those are the kinds of specifics that it feels like we're missing. And I don't know, or economic opportunity, right? Like maybe maybe there's a large number of young people who live in, I don't know, like the East Hills who have would want to go to training, but it's not, you know what I mean? Or, I mean, you see what I mean? Like specifics about, rather than, because like, sure, we all want jobs and economic opportunity and better transportation, but what are the specifics of that? And that's, I think, the problem with a lot of the sort of like the multitude of plans, and especially plans when they come out, whether that be the city or PRT or PPS or whatever, is this feeling of plans coming that don't give us the specifics that we want to hear, right? And so I don't know how you're going to get to a plan with specifics without having kind of gathered those specifics in this engagement process. I don't know. I guess so phase 4. You said it was testing future development scenarios. I guess I'm not entirely clear of like what, so there's still another summer, correct? So, I mean, at risk of sort of asking you to repeat yourself, but I guess I'm not entirely clear on how these surveys get brought together, or is there any way to kind of go a little bit deeper, like go in and maybe work with council members? Like I would love, I mean, again, like I don't want to be like, this is what I want, you know, this, but I mean, I would love a meeting in Glen Hazel, right? But where someone has gone around, and not one of your staff, but someone from the consulting team has spent 5 hours knocking on doors in Glen Hazel and said, hey, we're doing this comp plan. Here's the thing. If you can't make it, could you take this survey? Can I text you the right? Like, so we can really get those folks out, because, and I know I've said this in meetings, but, you know, getting our sort of, you know, folks who are lower income, who are working, who are busy, it is hard to get those folks out and engaged. And I have not cracked the code, right? But that's because it is so labor intensive, right, to knock those doors. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it if you have any comments or whatnot. I know this has been a hard conversation, and you know, and I do. And I know that lots of work has gone into this so far, so it has been difficult. But anyway, if you have any comments, if not, that's okay too. I understand this is a hard conversation.
Thank you, Councilperson. I think one, we will continue to deeply engage. The citywide workshops are meant to be citywide, so anybody can attend and join. One of the things that the staff has been really great at doing is bringing the information and the content from the citywide workshops to community meetings. And so in that way, not only are folks learning about the comp plan and the phases and the stages that we're in, but they're also getting that same sort of robust survey and materials and different things like that in community settings. So people don't necessarily have to leave their neighborhood to go to a citywide meeting to be able to participate in the comprehensive plan. I do think that because we have done so much broad engagement, I think that there is quite a bit of opportunity to be much more strategic in the neighborhoods and the demographics that we engage with. And so you lifted up an example that's very specific of a single parent trying to, you know, navigate mobility and, you know, do the things that they need to do for their particular household. And so we have outline specific populations and demographics that we want to engage as part of this process. And so we've already started to be able to do that, and we can also share some of the results of that as well. Thank you for that.
The other thing, and I think that, just through this process is that, yes, there are engagement consultants. Yes, I'd say at the same time, most of what you're seeing at engagements, or a lot of what you're seeing at engagements, especially things that are not in the citywide arena, are our neighborhood planners. And it's because the engagement consultants are really working on a lot of the material, doing a lot of the training of the planners, because they're the people who are going to continue to be in these neighborhoods. And it is, like our neighborhood planners are the people that will be in Hazelwood, now, and, are intending to be, kind of working with those organizations in the future. And so, it is really important for us to have the planners be a very active, to play a very active role in the engagement around PGH 2050 and, and the comprehensive planning effort. And so, because ultimately, obviously, when we get to the conclusion of this phase and into plan development, which is going to get into a lot more detail as to strategies, and when we're getting to implementation and those things, it is going to be the planners from from city planning that are going to be the ones that are talking, going to be the ones continuing to talk to neighborhoods around these issues. I heard on on some of the aspects of of things that you'd like to see that you're not seeing, but I'd say as far as why many times, not only in your district but citywide, that planners are the ones that are engaging, especially our neighborhood planners are the ones that are engaging in their communities. That was, there's intention behind that.
I think, and this is something that is not unique to the city. This, I would say, to every nonprofit or social services organization ever. We need to move beyond the tabling event, right? People do not just come up to a table. That is not an effective way to engage people. And I see it, and it's not just you. I see it at event after event. And it's nice to have an event. I get it. It's nice to have lots of people come out and be present in organizations, and that's great, right? And it's fun, to celebrate whatever the event is celebrating, right? That's, of course, nice. But it isn't an effective engagement tool. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen, whether it be a job fair or a resource fair or whatever, and it's just a ton of people's, and the vast majority of the people are the people at the tables, and there is nobody at the actual event, right? It is not an effective way to engage people. You have, I know we say it a lot, you have to go where the people are, right? And maybe that means knocking the doors. Maybe that means going to the baseball games. That means going to the football games. It means going to to the tree plantings. It means going so yeah, well, right, but whatever it is, right? Maybe it's going to the and if that's something that as a city we can learn, I think that would be helpful, and maybe going forward next summer, just in terms of the time, right? Because that our neighborhood planners, because it's a lot of time. You go to an event, you're working, right? This is your work day, so it's not like your free time, and you're spending, 6 hours or whatever, 4 hours or 3 hours just kind of sitting in an event. Maybe a few people come by and say hi at your table, but that's not an effective use of the neighborhood planner's time. So if there's a way to kind of put your heads together as a department and figure out ways, to figure out how to get, literally just go out and be here's this survey. I don't know what the answer is, right? But anyway, but that would be my first recommendation is it's not, just even if you go to fewer events, right? If you can reach more people at fewer events versus we went to 100 events and sat and tabled at 100 events. I'm just using these numbers, but at any rate, well, thank you. I'll leave my comments at that, but I appreciate the work so far, and and I am too a little surprised that the consultants aren't here at the table to talk a little bit about what they've been doing. I don't know.
Can I?
Would you like her to speak to that?
Sure.
Several of them are on the Zoom between the tech team and the CE team. I'm not sure if they're able to speak, but they're here.
Anyway, well, I guess I don't have any specific I guess, well, I'll leave my comments at that. I know other members have comments or questions too, so.
Thank you. Other members? Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you. I appreciate this. This has been a long and difficult conversation for sure. There's been a lot of topics that have been touched. I'm going to ask a few questions that I've asked before. I voted no on this, along with several other council members, because of the cost. And I have in front of me the same numbers that I had back in December of 2023, where I asked my staff to look at cities that are relatively comparable in size and how much did they spend on their comprehensive plans. And mostly they spent about $1 or so per person, maybe $2 per person on their comprehensive plans. I think a really good comparable that I have in front of me is Cincinnati. Since we were talking about topography, I just literally looked up while I was waiting my turn. What are cities that have relatively similar topography to Pittsburgh? Cincinnati is one of them because it's on the river and it's hilly. And it has about 300,000 people. It has 308,000 people. And they spent $500,000, as far as we can tell, on their comprehensive plan in 2012. And that works out to $1.60 per person. And so I said it then, and I'll say it again. I cannot understand, I cannot fathom why we're spending $20 per person on a comprehensive plan. We could have added staff capacity inside of our department for far cheaper than that, and dedicated in-house time and attention. We're already clearly spending, in addition to the $6 million of consulting, clearly a lot of just kind of operating budget time and costs of staff as well. So it's actually more than $6 million. So it's actually more than $20 per person in the city of Pittsburgh. And I just think that's an outrage. Chicago, at 2.7 million people, spent $5 million, as best we can tell, on their comprehensive plan. Austin, Texas, at nearly 1 million in population, spent $1.3 million on their comprehensive plan. Again, that works out to like $1.30 per person. And so I did find that Cleveland seems to have, I don't know, I thought the population was higher. My notes here say 370,000 people, and they maybe spent in 2000 3.5, but entirely foundation funded, according to the notes in front of me, not out of their city budget. So I have concerns. I'm not going to ask you to answer that because that's already done. Council voted in favor of spending that much money. I and several other members voted no to spend that much money. But I will ask again, because I still don't see a satisfactory answer. And you presented today kind of what will the comprehensive plan do? And I think on your website, PGH 2050, and also I heard the same vocabulary in your slides presented as your testimony to council, something like this. It's in shape. It says this plan will shape citywide development. The plan will shape future development across all areas of the city. It will ensure that growth aligns with community needs. It can't do that. Explain to me how basically a vision paper will do that. What is, even if council adopts it, what is the enforcement mechanism? What are the powers of this plan? What are the actual legal powers of a plan? Of the plan that you will put in front of this body?
So the plan becomes the basis for any zoning change across the city?
What does that mean? What does that mean? What is the legal requirement. So will future councils not be allowed to do zoning that is inconsistent with the $6 million plan that this body does or doesn't approve or adopt? Explain.
The zoning code already does require plan compliance as a method of, overview. So the zoning code presently has that, and we have adopted that. That's why, for example, previous neighborhood plans, that have been adopted, using the Oakland plan as an example, we've had instances where a development has come through that is, an application for a zone change has come through. It did not meet the plan, and so in that case, the
planning commission recommended a negative recommendation back to council.
No, in that case, what happened was that the planner for the neighborhood, the applicant, went to the community. In that case, they worked with the community to create an amendment to the plan to allow for,
I don't believe you answered my question. That is because there was a neighborhood plan in place for Oakland.
Yes, which was adopted as part of the, just adopted in the absence of a comprehensive plan, as, the neighborhood plans have been adopted as the comprehensive plan for those, for those communities when they were adopted.
So you're saying if this council adopts this $6 million plan, that in the future of as long as it stands until it is replaced by some other adopted plan, a bureaucrat at a desk can reject somebody's application for a development on a specific parcel?
I mean, I would say that the example I gave was, was an applicant coming for a rezoning to build residential units.
And so are you saying that will happen if this city council adopts this $6 million comprehensive plan?
I mean, if it were something that doesn't comply with the plan, which in that case, the reason that specific instance where that didn't comply with the plan was that was listed in, that was listed in the future land use for that property was Innovation District. The Innovation District specifically restricted residential. They wanted to do an all residential project. Planner worked with the applicant, to go through community process, to have the community support an amendment to that plan to accommodate. The question is, if this council adopts this plan, you will literally have decided for like 140,000, there are 140,000 parcels in the city of Pittsburgh. And so you're saying this comprehensive plan will empower, if council adopts it, will empower the city planning department, not the planning commission, but the city planning department to accept or reject plans for any one of those 140,000 parcels? No, that would be part of our report to the planning commission, is whether a plan does or does not comply with. So it wouldn't take away process. It wouldn't allow for.
Kind of like moving the scenario here. I said, oh, the planning commission rejected it, and you said no, a planner rejected it. And so I'm saying, is that what you're proposing will happen when I say what will happen if we adopt this plan?
No, I was saying the planner was working with the applicant and the community to get to an amendment to the plan to allow that to happen, right? They amended the plan to say, okay, well, situation has changed. We want this to be in a different future land use classification so that the zone change
will or won't happen if council adopts this plan. You're saying that won't happen.
The answer is yes, that would happen, in that it would happen through, like us reporting to the planning commission how an applicant or an application is meeting or is not meeting the comprehensive plan. So, part of our recommendation to the planning commission in a case like this would be, does the development comply with the comprehensive plan? And it is our intention, through development of a future land use map, to then have the zoning in the city, be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And that is, that is similar to, to many and most other cities that, have a comprehensive plan that it has those powers.
So heretofore, because we don't have a comprehensive plan and we only have, 5 adopted neighborhood plans? 5?
That's correct.
We have 5 out of 90 neighborhoods have an adopted plan. That it's just really a matter of zoning when development comes into the planning department, as they're required to do per code, and be like, I'm proposing this here. And, there's certain threshold of size of development that needs to actually get its planning permits, yeah? I know, I guess you always need a zoning permit to build stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so you get your zoning permit. But here, it's not just a zoning permit, because you're saying that if council adopts this plan, that the planner can be like, well, it doesn't comply with the intent of the citywide comprehensive plan for 140,000 parcels, even though the zoning code hasn't been updated.
A planner would not be able to individually reject an application for non-compliance with the
But they
comprehensive
did
plan.
in the neighborhood plan in Oakland say, like, this actually isn't good enough. You have to go back, and you amended it before it got to planning.
Yes.
And then, so
And they presented an amendment to the Oakland plan at the same time in which they presented their rezoning, of the parcels that they owned from, in that case. And
Okay, so when we've asked this before on the record, the answer was, well, you should spend the $6 million to come up with this vision document that wouldn't be zoning, zoning would then happen separately, and it'll like help us get grants, which I didn't think was a good enough argument, so I voted no. But so, and those were the only answers. We went back and rewatched the testimony, and it's a lot different today than it was then. So I just think it's important for the public and council members to hear what is being said now, that the adoption of a comprehensive plan will empower the planning department to vet, in a way, with, kind of without public conversation, the way the planning department, the planning commission does have public notice and public engagement. That's what I'm hearing from you.
No, I'm saying that there is public process around a report to the planning commission that says as to whether or not something complies with the plan. That is not taking away any public process that exists. But the comprehensive plan is to determine how we use property, or how we allow property to be used, right?
Who's we?
The city. The city, because our zoning ordinance are,
sure
these things do determine, where people can build housing, light manufacturing, other types of uses.
Which now we do zoning to do that. But zoning would have its own separate process before this body, puts that zoning into place, or not.
Yeah, and the comprehensive plan would lead us to have a roadmap for what future zoning changes will look like, and what future zoning changes.
You would be asking future councils to create a zoning.
They would
which
be
is
the
slightly
ones,
different.
They would be the ones to ultimately, yes, this council or future councils would be the ones to continue to approve, any zoning changes. This is not taking away the right of city council to be able to do that, if that's your question.
Would some examples help?
Yes, sure. So we had one example, which was when a property owner proposed something in Oakland after this body had approved and adopted a neighborhood plan for Oakland. Is there another example?
Well, so I was thinking about examples of if in our plan we decide that we're going to really think more closely about limiting building in floodplains, or we're thinking about, you know what, we want to keep, like, I'm thinking about, District 3 and 4, okay, a lot of single-family housing, that, like, we want to keep that sort of density without, if that's what the plan decides, and someone proposes, well, you know what, we might be able to do this along Brownsville, and, okay, summarily, that's not in alignment with the plan. Okay, now let's take this for review to see if the plan wants to go another further. So it doesn't dismiss it, but the first review passes, this is not consistent with the plan. We think that Sawmill Run should not have this sort of density here. And so if then...
And in that case, the city planning director or the zoning administrator briefing planning commission, or what is the process as described by Director Dash? Was that it was a recommendation from the department to the planning commission?
So if someone were proposing to build apartments along Sawmill Run Boulevard, right, then our recommendation
Which
would be...
frequently floods.
Right, this is inconsistent
problematic.
with the plan. We don't think this is a good idea. And so then now there is a process that the recommendation to planning is that this is not consistent with the plan. The recommendation for denser housing, where did we decide that makes sense? This person is proposing something outside of that. That's inconsistent with the plan. Okay, so then there is a process, but our recommendation to the planning commission is that this is inconsistent.
Okay, well, we did amend the floodplain map by FEMA recommendations back in like 2015, and it was particularly memorable because it was the first time that it did extend up streams instead of just being along the edges of the major rivers. And so we adopted that to match the federal floodplain insurance maps, right? The FEMA insurance maps. I don't remember particularly because it's not my district. If Sawmill Run Boulevard is one of those, I do remember that Washington Boulevard, Negley Run, is one of the places where it was added to the floodplain map. So we have done these things, and when we were speaking about hillsides earlier, it was in the 2010s when early, or maybe even late 2000s, when City Council under Councilman Bill Peduto had an entire hillside commission. I think Councilman Lavelle might have been on the council then, I was not, that did culminate in the creation of the hillside overlay, and the addition of parcels of over 30% slope to that hillside now. So, I mean, it's been in place for quite some time that prohibited new construction in that hillside overlay. Did I mischaracterize that?
No, I was using those as examples of things that the plan would put a negative recommendation on. I mean, right, we already have, steep slopes, but just codifying across the city, what is the vision for these spaces? What's the vision for density in District 4? What's the vision for density in District 3? And it's not consistent. Well, Southside Slopes is different than Knoxville. What's possible there? How do we think about that? What's consistent with what, came out of the plan? Let's not just say, hey, this guy's got a lot of money and an opportunity. Let's let him go and do this. Well, what's the recommendation for the plan? From the plan is this.
All right, so that answers the question of what we asked before, and which was how does that kind of affect what is legally binding here at this table. The other question is what, other than being, if it's a vision plan, what is the legal authority over transit, which is not a city department, over schools, and all of those kinds of things, all of the authorities, in fact. So is there any any requirement for any authority to follow any of these things? I asked that before, so I'm asking it again, because I'm just getting different answers sometimes.
As you already know, the authorities have their own powers just by their organization. And so our goal is to work closely with them in terms of coordinating around future development goals for where new mobility hubs could be, or where we could transform vacant school structures and different things like that. So we do not, as the city, have the authority to tell what another authority to do. But our goal with the comprehensive plan is to coordinate around the future of certain sites.
So, and I remember, again, this is going on 2 years of conversation because it started even before the legislation was on the table in December of 2023. I suggested that you put those cooperation agreements in place then, instead of waiting and hoping for later. Because we do have cooperation agreements. I mean, our authorities, like the Parking Authority, PWSA, the Urban Redevelopment Authority, are actually our municipal authorities. And we should have already negotiated that they do follow a comprehensive plan that we put in place before we just spent $6 million and then keep our fingers crossed for later. Now, we don't even have a single board seat on the Port Authority board. So I'm just going to state that for the record because it's a bit of a sore point, right? That is a county authority. City doesn't even have a seat on it. That one, we have no leverage. But the authorities that we've created and could hypothetically liquidate, just a tangent here, like Gainesville, Florida just did this year in liquidating its water authority and bringing all of the staff and the debt and all of the operations back in-house into its municipality. We should theoretically have leverage, right? And should have been already able to say, like, hey, for example, redevelopment authority, are you going to comport with a comprehensive plan that if we spend $6 million on it? So has anyone engaged the Urban Redevelopment Authority?
Sushila is actually on our steering committee.
Thank you for reminding me about the steering committee. You said City Council is on the steering committee. Who is on the steering committee from City Council? Thank you, Mr. President. I don't believe that I knew that. And before now. That's right. How did you get appointed to the steering committee?
That's a good question. I was asked to participate, and I agreed. I think is how it happened.
Did you appoint yourself?
No, I didn't. I definitely didn't appoint myself. Yeah. I think I was asked to, and I agreed. I just started participating. I don't think it was any formal appointment.
Right. So clearly, the planning department is managing the steering committee. Yes. Okay. So did you invite the people to be on the steering committee, Dr. Bay? Yes. So you decided who would be on the steering committee. All right. How many people are on the steering committee?
30-something?
Over 50 people.
Yeah, right. So we recruited the department heads, authority heads, and folks who had decision-making power from each of those. So someone had already requested that list for us. It was Councilman Charlin, maybe. But we'll share that list.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then lastly, again, I am mainly concerned with the $3.5 million contract and those deliverables, which I have a copy of the contract. Thank you for sharing when I requested it from the planning department of what are the deliverables for the HRNA legislation. I can't remember the number of the legislation offhand. And so I see that they have gone in phases, and are the deliverables through phase 1 to 3 on the 2050 or whatever the comprehensive plan website is? Are they publicly posted on the website?
The topic working books, the shared vision, the pillar guides, as well as the scenario content.
Okay, great. And then this last phase will be like something like it's like writing it or something. So they're going to take those vision books and put them into, again, language that is more binding, according to you today, than I think we've ever gotten an answer for before in the last 2 years when I've asked the same question. And so that will be into that language of what is like in a format that city council will be asked to adopt. And again, there are something like 70 previous plans for the city, and none of them have been adopted before. I have an email from the city archivist from 2023 also when I asked them for all the previous city plans, and there was a number of them that were on the city planning website. So it was on your department website. But we've never had a comprehensive plan. Maybe some of the plans were adopted, but you weren't calling them, you were saying they weren't comprehensive plans, and that this one is going to be a comprehensive plan. Can anyone help me out here, clarify?
I mean, there are lots of, city has a history of doing planning.
In fact, it's part of the deliverables for HRNA to gather up all those plans.
Yes, and there is a space on the website where, where there are references to a lot of those efforts. Whether that is from things like planning that we've done along our riverfronts to, there were neighborhood plans that communities did as well as neighborhood plans that the city did historically, that are unadopted. But
So-
there are the neighborhood planning, program that was developed during the previous Maryland administration under Mayor Peduto. Those plans were adopted. There have also been citywide plans that have been adopted. They just have, I'd say, only some relevance relative to the development process. When I think about our cultural heritage plan, that was adopted in 2012,
Those
or
partial plans during the Reagan
the open space
administration.
plan, that was adopted in 2013. Those are, plans that have been adopted, in some form or fashion by the city. Yes.
But it also goes back to 1920, the Pittsburgh plan, right? The first one was playgrounds. This is an email from 2023 these are the hyperlinks from the city planning
Yes.
website back in 2023.
Those
Major street plans in 1921, transit plan in 1923, railroads plans, waterway plans. There was
Yes, those were done by it's like the Citizens Committee to Plan Pittsburgh or something like that, which was, I would say at least from looking at the leadership on that plan at that point in time, the closest corollary would be the Allegheny Conference, of today, that it was really, kind of business organizations that were leading that 1920s effort.
And then the famous one was it Robert Moses who did the review of past planning, the 1960s comprehensive plan that City Council rejected?
I know that Moses did plans in that era for Pittsburgh. I do not recall if that one specifically is the Moses plan.
I think I've got a link in front of it. Yeah.
But he did do some work here in Pittsburgh. It was ultimately something that that there are vestiges of here in the city, but it was not something that was adopted by the city. No.
Yes, thank goodness that it wasn't adopted. So these are similar questions and slightly different answers that I've asked before on the record. I think we definitely have a fuller picture of what the document will be than we did when the money was allocated. But I do share the same concerns as other members over the outreach. I have a couple quick questions and then I'll stop. It reports on the website. In fact, it's a running ticker of how many, it says participants, I think. 29,600 participants.
Yes.
You don't actually know that those are separate individual people.
They're the 29,000 unique people? No. So from surveys, like, we can distinguish some of them, like, we can count the surveys, they're unique. But you can take a survey, the 90 to 1 survey and the State of Just Pittsburgh survey.
And
Right.
it's not 29,600 responses to surveys.
No, the definitions for how we're engaging are included
Right, and so
on
like,
the page.
put
Right.
stickers on a board at one of these tabling events is a participation.
Right, so if we had an event and we have folks do exercises at tables for 2 hours, and at the end, we collect those people who participated. Those stickers are also the people who participated at the table events. They registered for the event, they showed up.
But at the Highland Park Hullabaloo, it was anybody that walked by that could put stickers up.
Right.
And you could put up 20 stickers. So, did they count the number of people that stopped and put up stickers? Did they count the number of
Is that what the color
stickers, right?
codes are for?
I mean, it could hypothetically be, 1,000 people each participating 30 times. Very, very actually plausibly. So this is not participants, and that's mislabeled as such on the website and in your presentation to council. It's contacts, which is a very, very different metric. And you did make a big deal about spending $6 million to have 30,000, I think 60,000.
30,000.
I think you said 20%. Actually, we'll go back and look at the record. It was either 10% or 20% of the city was going to participate.
I wasn't here for
I
that
was
part, but it
skeptical.
was 10%.
I was skeptical, and I still am. And then, secondly, since we have been pointed towards the website very many times, I would like to see the back-end traffic reports on that website, because again, it could very easily be 1,000 people looking at it 30, 40 times. And so I'll be looking for that. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Smith.
Thank you. I think what you're hearing is a lot of buyer's remorse. I think there's a lot of frustration. The city's not doing well financially, and we have our struggles getting the things that we're supposed to take care of, and we just spent $6 million, which I voted against, Councilwoman Gross voted against, and I believe Councilman Coghill voted against. So, but at the end, this money still went through, and we still did not, took it out of things that we could have been spending the money on. But for me, my frustration is that we've done this, it's a done deal, it's already happened, there's nothing, we can't take it back. But before I go into that part, Director, I want to talk about the email that you sent out. I was keeping that between us. We had a conversation. That was the end of it, as far as I was concerned. I don't like berating people publicly, and I don't have any intention on doing it here today either. But what I will say is, hopefully in the future, that's a lesson for everyone, not to put those kinds of things in writing. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for a director to do. And that I feel comfortable that we had our conversation, it was over. So I just want people to know that we did talk and that it's over. So moving on, what I will say is with this, I have some concerns about the community process and who was supposed to notify city council of these meetings, because I did get some meetings and some notices and some I did not. So who's responsible for notifying us?
I've been sharing the
some I
upcoming
got.
events and dates, as well as the monthly updates to council as the full body.
So some I received and some I have not seen. So, but I'll tell you, I've gotten a new phone, so it might be part of that. And I was locked out of my emails twice. So it may be related to that, but I just want to know who I should talk to if I have some issues from now till the end of the year. And I think that's part of the problem. I hear that you've talked to this one, you've talked to that one, but you haven't talked to council. There's not been really great communication with council. There's been emails, there's been occasional meetings and that type of stuff. And my meetings I've rescheduled twice, so I do know that. But I think it's the actual, just pick up the phone, hey, we're coming in your district, anything you suggest, anything, just a conversation We don't always have to have a meeting, it's a conversation. And it's building that relationship between us and working together and make council members feel a little bit more comfortable about city planning. It seems like we're at odds. It doesn't seem like we're a part of the city and that you're a part of what we do. It seems like we're at odds and almost in competition, as if you're the 10th council person. And so it kind of feels like stressful sometimes working with you, and it shouldn't be that way. But it's always been that way since I've been here. Just so you know, it's been that way since I've been here. But I think the selection process for the steering committee was what I wanted to know. Councilwoman Gross asked that, so I'm grateful for that. And the topography is something that's concerning to me. But you talked about going into 90 neighborhoods, and I don't see you in 90 neighborhoods. I have it here, the article, that when you said that they would be going into 90 neighborhoods. And now you gave us a list of 17, and that's not even half of, what we needed to have done by the first year. So I'm kind of curious, are there any plans to go into Esplin? Are there any plans to go into East Carnegie? Are there any plans to go into Fairywood? Those are neighborhoods that are smaller, that don't get the attention. You went to Grandview, and I'm glad that you did, but they do get a lot of attention, and they may not feel that way, but in comparison to some of the other smaller neighborhoods, they definitely receive a lot of funding and a lot of help and a lot of attention. I'm just, because Esplin does not receive a lot, and I'm always over here fighting for them for the past 17 years. To get the same respect as others. But regardless of how big or how small a neighborhood is, I want them all to have the same respect. So is there any plans of going into the other neighborhoods, or is this, and do you have a list of those?
We do know where we need to do more engagement, and so the Esplins and the Chateaus and the Hayes and the Glen Hazels are on, there's like 2 handfuls of neighborhoods that we have to definitely do additional engagement in.
And I also want to make sure they're in the Westwood and the Banksville and the places that pay taxes, a lot of taxes to the city. So I want to make sure that those are not off the radar. So if you said they're going to go in 90 neighborhoods, I expect to see them in 90 neighborhoods, because that's what we were told would be covered under this $6 million plan. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to wonder what legal recourse we have, because I'm thinking, what was in the RFP? What did we expect them to do by such a date? Can we get a copy of that, of the RFP again? Because I know you sent it initially, but I'd like an updated, I'd like to see that again.
Yes, we can send it.
Councilwoman Gross just handed it to me that fast, sorry. I'll have to put my glasses on to see. So I'm curious if they met the goals of what was in the RFP, and who's monitoring to make sure that they're meeting the goals. Who does monitor, you or the director?
Myself, along with the planning department. They are working with us by phase for engagement, and so that looks like obviously the citywide events, that looks like facilitating the working groups, that looks like engagement strategy, that looks like the 90 to 1 and all of those surveys and different things like that. And so they are on track to meet all of the deliverables.
So I'd
per
like to know,
contract.
who'd you work with? So it's my understanding also that you gave funding to people to bring people to the meetings, because we saw that list of, I think one was Keisha Gomez, one was some guy from West. There was a group of people that you gave funding to.
The community working group and the youth working group.
Yeah. And how were they selected?
Through an application process.
And did
a
you
public
think at all that
application
maybe you should
process.
talk to the city council about that?
In terms of reviewing the
Of who you,
applicants?
review who you were thinking about awarding, what our understanding was of their leadership in the community, anything like that? Did you think about that?
We did. You remember that early on in the process when we came around and I met with you and you gave us a list of names, and we took your list
Give you
of
that one person's name because I've never heard of him. So
no. We took your list of names and we shared that application and said, hey, here's where we are in the process. We called each of those people or met with them and gave them the list for people that they recommend, and it was an open process from across the city. And then we sort of tried to make sure we had representation from across the city.
So when I gave you those lists, I think that was for something else. That was for a different plan.
Well, those are for the
Yeah.
people that we should reach out to make sure that we're checking in with, was the way we
No,
phrased
that
that
was
list.
that list. I have the email still. It was specifically for the meeting that you were having regarding the Sheridan Busway.
No, prior to that, you and I, we met in your office. Sharonda and I came and we met
Oh, I
with
do
you, and you
remember
gave
that.
us a
Yeah.
list of names, and
Yeah.
we copied them down. It wasn't an email. And you and your, I guess Kim at the time, gave us a list of people that definitely should not be excluded or should be aware as we're engaging. And so we reached out to those folks, shared the process with them, shared the website, the application link, and that's how that was populated.
And so, okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I sometimes am a little fuzzy with my memory, but I do write down a lot of stuff just because of that. But what I would say is that I just wanted to know how they were selected and were they giving funding, because I believe it was $30,000 for that one, $10,000 for this one, $10,000 for that one, $10,000 for a third person. And do you want me to pull up the email? Would that help?
So they went through application process as well as interviews.
But did they receive the 10,000 each? Is what I think it said.
Yes,
And was it for just that one meeting, or was it for additional meetings?
for the full process
The full
of
process?
the comp plan.
Okay,
Several years.
okay. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I voted against this because we didn't have the money at the time, but I also voted against it because it's for 2050. I'll be 91 in 2050, so I doubt I'm gonna even live to see it. So I'm sure by then a new mayor's gonna come in, several new mayors, and by then they'll have different plans. So, I don't know that any of this is gonna ever come to fruition. And I feel like, it's a lot of money wasted, to be honest with you. And not that I don't think that we do need a plan. I do think we need a plan, but I honestly think we need a plan for right now and what's happening today, and tomorrow, and then in the very near future, not the distant future. So for me, it was just it was a lot of concern, and I don't know how some of these people were selected for some of this stuff, and I expect to see them in all 90 neighborhoods as we were told that they would be. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you for your work. I know it's frustrating to sit here and listen to all of us being frustrated, but I think that's what it is. It's a little bit of buyer's remorse and knowing that we're struggling with funding. Sorry, Council President. Thank you.
No worries. So before going to second round, before I saw Councilwoman Warwick, I just wanted, and I'll be very brief. The intent behind the post agenda was to take some time to be able to both inform, educate, and get substantial feedback from council, because to both Councilwoman Gross's point, at some point we will be asked to adopt this thing. And so I'm of the belief that if we're going to be asked to adopt it, then members need to sort of be a part of the process and understand what we're being asked to, not just be given a document at the very end.
I'm going to ask for a new process.
Not just being given a document at the very end that's going to be 500 pages and say, here, we want you to adopt this thing. However, I think the structure that this took place didn't really allow for that, right? And so next year, I'll look to hold another one of these, but I will structure it very differently so that it's much more of an engaged conversation. So I just wanted to speak to what my initial intent was. What I've also heard is sort of two things. One is sort of the public engagement process. And I've heard across the board that all members effectively feel that wasn't substantial, right? And so I think there's a conversation to have about what does that look like moving forward. And I'm willing to have it with all of you all, obviously, but also with the planning department. The other thing that I heard is, Councilwoman Smith, you mentioned, well, we paid for it, there's nothing we can do. And I disagree with that. I think there's a lot of input that members can add into this process, into what this plan is ultimately supposed to be. I also heard members, Charlene touched on it a lot, and Councilwoman Warwick touched on it a lot as well. It's sort of the decision-making process of how we got to where we are and how are these things being done. What I know, because I do sit on the steering committee, so I've seen sort of some of the process and how it's played itself out. So if I'm just using, use my district as an example of where I think this plan should lead us. I've been clear since day one that in my opinion, this plan should, one, be guiding our budgetary process, as well as our zoning process, as well as our development process. So going back to, and I don't remember the date, so forgive me, I don't think what they're called right now. What are those, the 20 deep dive booklets? What are those things
The
called?
topic area audit books.
Say it again.
Topic area.
Topic area books. So just as an example, I was trying to pull it up just now, but I couldn't. If you go to the website, and it was actually hard to find, it took me a while as I sat here, housing is a topic area, right? And so it takes a sort of a deep dive into what is the housing that we have in the city of Pittsburgh. And I'm gonna jack up the numbers. I don't remember it exactly, but once they did the study, it came back and said, 75% of all the housing in Pittsburgh is single family homes. These homes were all built. We have a very old age housing stock, by the way. And then it also looked into, well, who's actually moving in? Well, we see poorer, blacker people moving out. We see wealthier people moving in. What's being built? Where is it being built? Da, 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 da. So if I, as a council representative, would do a deep dive into my neighborhood and go, I need this sort of housing, right? However, there's another topic area that's, I think, is infrastructure, right? That sort of does a deep dive into, crap, but we also have this aging infrastructure. We also have this, and here's where we need to go. It would then allow for a more informed conversation about the type of housing I should be building in the Hill, where it should be built, what's the infrastructure needs, and all that ends up being sort of a budgetary consideration for me, right? You all know we got the RAISE grant to do infrastructure along Center Avenue because we're trying to build out a commercial corridor where we have aging infrastructure, right? We have city steps that are crumbling, but we're building new housing up here. How are they supposed to get down to the new business corridor, right? So that was something that's neighborhood specific. But it's, in my estimation, is that sort of work, and I forget all the 20 topic areas, that then said, okay, based upon all of that, and then based upon where, and we can debate how many actual survey respondents there were, because I think your point is valid, then how does that guide where the decision-making factors for the city should go, right? How does that shape what the South Side Slopes ultimately looks like? How does that shape what should be happening on your business corridor? Is there a better way to get transit throughout the city? Like, do we need rail cars? Like, what are we doing here? And this should really be a guide for our city as a whole. And I think members should have absolutely a part in shaping out what that looks like now and for the future. But there is specificity within there. We didn't get into it today. Like, we didn't get into the 20 topic areas. We didn't necessarily say, okay, based upon that then informed to Councilman Charlin's question of, well, how are these decisions made, right? Who were the people that were making those decisions? It wasn't me, but who were the people making those decisions? I think I don't want to do it today because it's for something. I'm gonna have to go pick up children soon. But I do think that's a worthwhile conversation to have, and I do think those questions should be fully answered to members prior to us being asked to then adopt something. We should fully understand, and I can't think of the word, the methodology behind those things and how we got to, well, which cities are we comparing ourselves again? Because in my conversations, the ones that I was a part of, there was considerable conversations put into determining those factors, right? But that wasn't fully explained here today. And so I will take some onus for not properly having better structured this. Next year, I will look to do so again once there's another update to the work that they've been doing. And I'm asking you all for your feedback on how to better structure this conversation. I think that's all I wanted to touch on before second round. Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of sort of the moving forward conversation. So I realize that we don't have the exact number on like how much money is left, right? How much, but I hope that we can assume, since we're 2/3 of the way through, I hope that we can assume that there is at least $1 million left, I hope. And again, this is simplifying things, just because I know that in the press, there's going to be lots of talk about the cost of this, and this meeting is, but let's just say hypothetically that there is $1 million left. That is $11,000 per neighborhood, if you have 90 neighborhoods. So I think that it is worth, and if the consultant team is here on the line, I think it is worth, just for the public and, just sort of given the kind of you know, the way this meeting has gone, to have a regroup and to, you know, all the surveys and whatnot aside, say we are going to have a sit-down 2-hour planning session in every neighborhood, and we are going to get the word out about those sessions, you know, whether it's door knocking or whatever it is, and then in that door knocking, get as many, you know, if they're like, well, I can't make it or whatever, maybe it's putting in a door thing saying, please take this survey. You know, if, as I'm, again, like with 10 or 11,000, that is more than enough, right? I mean, you could do that, I think, with you know, I don't know, but I certainly know that you could have a big meeting for each neighborhood where you just get like Giant Eagle catering and tables and have everyone come for 2 hours for, you know,
Make sure it's Giant Eagle, that's right.
$1,000 or whatever, you're right, or some local, I mean, I think that would be worthwhile, if I have my math right, I'm just making sure, I'm always worried about my math, but, I think that would be a good idea, is to say, look, we really are going to go in, because those meetings are good. I mean, I only went to one of them, right? The one at the Energy Innovation Center. It was a very good meeting, right? It was a good conversation. You know, lots of ideas. I know that people felt good about it who were there, and and people were taking notes, you know, from the planning team. And I feel like if we could replicate that in every neighborhood, then I don't know, I would feel better about it, right? I would feel better, and we were gathering those specific details from residents, especially in the harder to reach communities. That would be my recommendation going forward.
Thank you. And just real quick, Councilman Coghill, I just remembered the other thing I wanted to say. It was to Councilman Charlin, when early on he sort of proposed, well, why is it either or, when he was sort of talking about density as well as safety as well as transportation using sort of New York. That's not how I view it. What we're attempting to do here, what I view it as, it's not an either or. It's how do you manage it all, right? So if we say we want the density, if we say we want the population growth, if we say we want the transportation, what does it look like to manage that all? Do I have to invest first in, to use my example of Center Avenue, do I have to invest first in infrastructure? Do I have to first invest in better transportation because people can't park, it's a mess? Like, I want all those things, but how do I manage it, and what am I putting our city's limited resources into first, right? Do I first need to stabilize the hillside that's currently slipping down Center Avenue so that doesn't hurt? Like, it's not an either or to me. And I don't want us to look at it that way. It's rather, we want to do all these wonderful things, but how do you do it so that it all makes sense? And what are you investing in and what times? And if we're also bringing in, as the data says, we're bringing in wealthier residents, well, how do we also preserve those who are already here, right? Who are already potentially cost burden. So it's looking at how to do all of that in a tangible way. That's the only other point I wanted to make. At least that's how I view it. Councilman Coghill, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just real quick, going back to what Councilwoman Gross was asking about, will the Planning Commission take recommendations from the comprehensive plan? And that scares me a little bit. Is that what you were saying, Andrew?
I'm sorry, repeat.
Did you say whatever the comprehensive plan says about zoning, about housing, that the Planning Commission will take that as a recommendation when making their decisions? Is that what you were alluding to? No?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So, as it works now, planning staff provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission on a development application that, we review urban design through the Contextual Design Advisory Panel, we review transportation with DOMI, we review a number of other, we review zoning code of compliance, And, we review the development activities meeting / RCO process if there is one. Comprehensive plan compliance would be and is in the places where we have adopted neighborhood plans presently something that will be a part of that review and that recommendation to the Planning Commission as a part of planning's staff report.
Understood. So through the comprehensive plan, and being that it's already been voted on by the Planning Commission as inclusionary zoning, was there findings or recommendations on that citywide, or no?
There was a report to the Planning Commission for that
From the
planning staff to the Planning Commission.
No. I mean,
to make a recommendation
from the folks doing the work on the comprehensive plan. Did they have any suggestions as to IZ? Nothing.
Not yet. We're not, as we work through what ultimately a final scenario looks like.
Okay.
We will then work to develop strategies, whether that comes in the form of policies, whether that's programs, whether that's other strategies that are going to be the way that we implement to create kind of that vision for the future. And I don't want to step on toes from the team here, where all of that is things to be developed and things to be worked with, not only kind of the list of folks that Sharonda had really already, had already mentioned, but, with City Council as well before we get to adoption of an actual plan.
Okay. This is just strictly a question for good business for me, is this. The monies that are unspent, let's say 1.5 million, just for conversation's sake, right? Let's say that. Are they under contract? Are we obligated to whomever that money organizations go to? Are we under contract?
Are we under contract for the remaining funds? Yes. Yes, it is all under contract.
So we have a signed agreement. With whom?
With HRNA and Urban American City for the technical work, and Common Cause and Sasaki, plus their sub-consultants for the community engagement.
Okay. And of that 1.5 million, just for conversation's sake, has work been done on that 1.5 million out there still, or is it work to be done?
The phase 4 and phase 5 work to be done. It's where we're in the process of phase 4 now.
Right, so we probably owe monies on work that's already been done with that remaining money. Is that correct, do you think?
Some of it's been done, some of it, as where we are in the process, we haven't had those final scenario vetting exercises yet.
Obviously, if we're under contract, we're legally obligated. I understand that. Mm-hmm. I've been in this situation before with other contracts. To this thought about when you see about Cincinnati spending $300,000 for a plan when we're spending $6.2 million. I would love to ask for some of that money to be, restored and have them not do the work. And, if they want to hold us to that as a contract, they could. But whoever we're working with, we're in a crisis in many different avenues. $500,000 would go a long way if we were to recoup $500,000 and make ends meet in some other way to finish out the plan. I still want you to finish a plan. I do, but we're this far. But I would love to draw back some money. And if we're under contract, we're under contract. Nothing's stopping us from going to who we're under contract with and asking them to curtail their work and, eliminate that. They could hold us to it if they'd like. Would you or anybody be willing to do that?
It doesn't seem like something that's within, let's say it's 1.5 million and we've already spent 4, or 3.5 million, or wherever we are, then that money is money that the city just flushed. So we're close enough that we need to get to that final payment to get the final product. Cities that grow have plans. You said this is an expensive plan. You guys voted on that before I got here. And so what we are working toward, though, and where we're close enough to, like the finish line is not that far out. We have a new administration coming in. He's going to take a look. All right, what do they see out of this? Where would they like to see it here? So it's actually at a good place since we aren't in that scenario plan, that final stage of that yet.
Yeah, so I guess it's hard for me because I don't know how much money's out there still. We don't know what it's geared towards. We don't know what's under contract and for how much and with whom, I guess. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, let's cut out some of the work. You'd be doing the city a great service by freeing up $500,000. So that's my ask. If you would do it, I would make the call if you would permit me, or if somebody would permit me myself to see if it could be done. Anything could be done. That could be done.
I believe this is a necessary tool for the city to grow.
And that's your answer.
And I think that would be
So the necessary
my
funding,
advice.
in your position, you're saying the necessary funding out there
Right.
is needed to complete.
Right. From what I see and looking at cities that build comprehensive plans and sort of coordinate these things, the outcomes are far outweigh where, okay, we saved $500,000. If we could get a plan that sort of sets us right on a path that makes sense, that aligns a lot of what's happening in the city, that seems like a far more valuable proposition.
So I will tell you, Doctor, I, in a previous life, 20 years ago, worked for the state Senate, did neighborhood plans. I went to my senator and I said, I don't want to do neighborhood plans anymore because it's a waste of money. I really, truly believe that. Things change, administrations change, council people change, city residents change, the demographic, everything changes. And I only came to that decision because I saw them sitting on a shelf for years, not one implemented, not one part of it implemented. I spent hours and days working, not only my time for the senator, but at the time it was $125,000 for a neighborhood plan for a specific neighborhood. And I just thought, what a waste of money. I really do. I hope I don't feel the same way about this plan.
To
I
the
do.
council president's point, the idea, if we can sort of take this remaining time, engage council, let's put your imprint on it, so that you see that this is a living document for the city. If this is something that council adopts reluctantly or that council dismisses, then we failed. The plan that lives is the plan that you see, that Councilman Charlin sees, that Councilman Gross sees. This makes sense. I see where my residents, I see how this is good for this city. That's the plan, and that's the process that we need from here out.
Okay, so here's what I would like to know, just to my question, is how much money is unspent? How much money do we owe that work has been done for? And what is that money going towards exactly, as to what scope of work?
What outstanding
that they're
deliverables?
doing? Right, that's right. That's what I would like to see. And if it's $1 million+, I would love to see the will to try to scale some of that back. I would. Not because I don't feel like it's the right thing for the plan, not because I don't believe in planning, which these types of plans, I don't. But I don't. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? I feel like 50 years from now, we're going to look at this plan, whether we adopt it or not, and it's going to be like, what did we do there? Maybe we've done some things, but it's just the way the city naturally progresses. Some things will be done, some things will not, So I would love to see the will as to trying to claw back $200,000, something to buy a vehicle, something that we're in desperate need of. These are the essentials, I feel. I don't feel a plan is essential. I just don't, and I'm sorry I feel that way. It's not, has anything to do with your qualifications, and this was a task given to you. I don't believe this was your idea, so it's not a criticism to you, but, I probably wouldn't have gone down the road originally, but we are where we are. I'm just trying to scale back a little bit of money, anything. 100,000, whatever you want me to do, right? So that's it. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here. Thank you for answering tough questions today. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Charlin.
Thank you, and I know you've got
Nope.
childcare trip here, so I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Okay.
But so, kind of to Councilman Caldwell's point here, if we can't do taking back what is unspent here, I am curious what you think a pause would look like to allow the next administration to come in and kind of put their understanding of this plan, making sure that this is something that they want to see out of this. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that was we didn't use the language pause, but our plan was to get it to a point before the holidays, before the administration came, that we had something to share to say, here's the progress. What do you think? Which direction do you want to, where's your thumbprint on this? And so that was the plan that, initially, and that's why I said that we pressured the councilman, let's have this conversation, before you get busy into the budget season. Not that you're not busy yet, but that's where we are. We're in agreement with that, but we didn't call it a pause. What we said was, let's get to the point where we have something to show the next administration.
So no more work will be done on the
Well, no, we
comp
still
plan.
have work to show. We have,
No more money will be spent on the comp plan between now and.
I said, we didn't say pause. The
you
people are still working.
You
What
decided not
I
to
said,
take a pause.
No, you used the language pause. I never said, we never used the language
pick your
pause.
word. Pick
Our
your word.
goal was to, let's have something that when the next administration is ready to meet with us, we have a full, here are the questions, here's what we learned from council, here's what we can present to you.
So you're at a good stopping point, a good resting point.
No, we have a couple of weeks left on that.
Okay. So what would it look like then to take a pause now?
Christmas?
I mean, do you
I don't
think
know what it
Christmas
would
is
look.
gonna
We
be a
had
good
we hadn't
engagement
entertained
time?
that. We hadn't entertained a pause. I said we were
Okay.
working until we had something to share. We don't have a meeting scheduled with the new administration, but we're assuming that one is forthcoming, and we'd like to present. Here's the work that the department is working on. Here's the comp plan. Here's how we got here. Here's what we're thinking about are the next steps.
Yeah. So I haven't talked to them about this, but I would like to consider that in the same way that, like Councilman Coggle was talking about, what clawing some of the money back would look like. I would like to see what a pause would look like at this point. What's done is done. Whether we think that's effective or not, we're not going to be able to get that money back. But how do we, throw less good money after bad? How do we stop doing that? And I think this might be a good opportunity for us to, maybe we need to explore some legislative options on how we can create that barrier there. I want to go to another point that actually Councilwoman Gross brought up about how we really have no control over county authorities. We've got limited control over city authorities, but then also at the end of the day, like the planning department doesn't really have a lot of control over other departments, and I think Council President Lavelle brought this up as well. The idea that I think this has been floated around. I don't think this is exactly how you described it, but this is kind of how I understand that at the end of a capital budget request that we submit, we always have to put in how this complies with the mayor's vision of the budget this year, or also how does this comply with the Act 47 principles. I was assuming that in this it would say, how does this comply with the Pittsburgh 2050 comprehensive plan? That would be kind of what you would like to see as an end result here. The problem with that is that we all know, and we all submit capital budget requests, we can make anything fit into Act 47 principles. Whatever buzzwords come up as these are, we have to find a way that, to use this or that in the capital budget proposal. It really just becomes an exercise of like, how do you say that asking for, the balled off retaining wall, which conveniently was left out of the budget this morning, how do I say that is something that complies with resiliency or density or whatever word we want to use in the future here? How is that a useful exercise for us to go through here?
Not sure. You got that one?
I can
understand the question.
respond.
I understand the question, but I'm not sure exactly what.
We're creating parameters that we therefore have to make sure that when we ask for money in the future that they fit those parameters. But we're all skilled enough to figure out how to make that happen.
Well, I think that all comes down to the level of the recommendations and the places where council ultimately wants to have the plan, play a role in controlling, how decisions are made. And I think that, we've heard that there's a lot of work to continue to do with council before, we are at a point where we can explore, I think, some of those things that, the council president had addressed as to ways that the plan can be influential. There are a number of other cities that, do have an adopted comprehensive plan controlling, or playing a significant role in how they're doing budgeting. Presently in the city of Pittsburgh, that's not the case. And even if we adopted this comprehensive plan, there aren't the mechanisms in place right now to say, okay, well now every budget decision, or certain types of budget decisions anyways, would be things that would, have to comply with the comprehensive plan. We would we would want to work with you all to determine what those are. And yes, to your specific example, like if the policies are worded a certain way, or the projects are worded a certain way, there is probably trying to stretch into a policy, how something's going to comply. But, I think, at the same time, I mean, cities are using their comprehensive plans as frameworks to be able to make these decisions. And I think that those are going to be things that as we get to the next phases of this work and we start actually putting those things down on paper, we're going to want to be working with you to figure out, all right, well, what are the teeth behind this? How do we implement this? To Councilman Coghill's comment previously, because there are lots of ways that cities can use their comprehensive plans, and whether that is primarily around development, whether that's around budget, whether that's around the plenty of other decisions that whether it's departments or city council or a mayor's office have to, to be able to make decisions or to influence decisions, whether that's of city government, of private actors, of the other authorities, we have to figure out what that path forward is, and what things, people feel confident enough in the comprehensive plan and then the process and what we need to do to get ourselves there that, that then, council would like for the plan to have more of a role of influence on.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm not of the mind that I think that we should constrain ourselves to only, like as Councilwoman Gross was saying, like we're determining now what every parcel is forever. We want to be a fluid city. We want to be moving as things are happening here. And if we put these restraints on ourselves right now, I think, we will regret that later. Good.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's how we define it, right? And how we define, if, for example, there are areas of the city that are to be lower density or higher density, what we write as to how that, as to what gets included in that is what then, helps us define. And I think it's around making sure that we're, protecting against some of the things that have come through this process as concerns that the public have, or concerns that neighborhoods have, or issues that we need to address. And so does that mean in certain neighborhoods that we're saying that low density could be multiple different types of development? Absolutely. I don't think that we're thinking that a final land use map or, those things getting written up are saying, you can only have a single family house on this lot and nothing else, or you can only do apartments or multifamily in this way specifically. I think we want to, be able to work through this process to define, what development looks like in different sections of the city, what the variety of options that we want to be able to entertain are, and what we want to protect ourselves against, as development moves forward. Because, obviously, to be able to see the tax revenue projections that are part of the scenarios, or the change in jobs or residents that are part of these scenarios, we've got to, we have to see development. We want to see development happen, and we want to see development happen kind of in line with what we've heard and worked through in this process.
The other question I have here, so, at the end of the day, we're going to end up with a comprehensive plan at some point. But as I understand it, that will not include the land use maps and the zoning changes that need to happen after that. That's an additional expense at the end of this. That was how this was sold to me. Do we have a better figure of how much that's going to cost at this point? That's not part of the $6 million plan, unless that's changed since you told me that 2 years ago.
At the end of this process, we'll have a proposed land use map, and so that will guide any new zoning changes or rezonings that need to happen.
Yeah, in addition, we will, I'm sure, have.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not what you said earlier.
I'm
but-
sure we anticipate having a lot of recommendations as to what in the zoning code needs to change, or what in our other development regulations that may not be in the zoning code needs to change. I mean, if you think about, I mean, there are lots of things that that cities are pursuing to be able to open up opportunity for development. The city of Pittsburgh doesn't presently have in its code. Sometimes because those aren't changes that we've made yet, sometimes because of state preemption or other issues. But the intention is that, as Sharonda said, that we will have a future land use map that at the conclusion of this process, and that will be adopted as a part of this process, and there will be strategies and recommendations as to to what specificity we need to figure out with you all and others, but as to how we need to change our rules, our regulations, our code to be able to accommodate that.
So now we're saying that after the $6 million, we don't need to throw any more money after following this. We're done after the $6 million.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I'm not saying that. I think that we're gonna,
So what would we need to throw it after? If it's not the zoning map.
Well, it's going to give us recommendations as to how we need to change our code. It's going to be on the imperative is going to be on planning staff, as well as the other people that make decisions around how codes and those things change, as to what we can do in house, what we might need additional funding for. So I don't have an answer to that question for you yet. I think that as we move further through this process, we will be able to say, all right, well, there are 15 recommendations on the zoning code, and these 7 are all ones that that the city can take on with existing staff. These things, we've got to figure out where there's capacity to do this thing that the city can't do now, and whether that's funding, whether that's something else. I mean, again, that's all hypothetical at this point in time, because I don't really have like a specific answer to your question.
Okay, that's terrifying, but all right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gross and Councilman Coghill.
Thank you. Just another small point that is about density, since that is one of the kinds of axes in the kind of chart of the mobility and the labor, or whatever, the jobs plan or the housing plan, and density is one of those axes of evaluating recommendations. We often at this table have conflated, maybe even a little in this conversation, but certainly in other ones, that single family zoning is the idea that it's all low density. Like you were saying, some areas, Director, you were saying earlier, some areas of the city are single family and are low density. I'm looking at Councilman Coghill. I know he's got some areas in his district. But I have an area near Children's Hospital that is single family zoning. That is pretty much the highest density area of the entire city. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I said it in terms of when we were rezoning the Oakland plan, that we should not assume, for this plan or in any other discussion, that new development, even if we zone higher, will increase the population density. Now, it's a normal assumption to make, but in the area that's called 9th Ward Bloomfield, it's across the street from Children's Hospital, the lots are so small, and it was built before parking requirements. It's 15,000 people per square mile in those census tracts on the U.S. Census Department website, density map. And citywide, we're about 5,000. And so it is literally, there's so many people crammed into every square foot of that district, because there's just larger households, there's rentals, they look like single families, but again, they're tiny, 15-foot wide townhouses that are all crammed in with, no minimum lot size and no parking pad and double built and alleys and then roommates inside of them and all those kinds of things. So I think it's healthy for us to look at density maps and not just assume that the zoning tells us what the existing densities are. So I just kind of wanted to emphasize that, and especially since we have not eliminated parking requirements, and we have been, that has been stuck and is still stuck. Where I've seen new development doesn't come anywhere near those population densities, because you've got some like 4-floor parking platform underneath the apartment building. And the apartments that have been built are large and maybe have more than one parking space built to them. And so even with the enormous height allowances that you have like in the RIV districts or in the Strip district, you're not getting population density. So we shouldn't assume that our new construction building forms are resulting in density. It's something that if we know where we want to encourage density, again, because there's existing infrastructure that's been there for 200 years, or that there's new infrastructure that we finally rebuilt that was 150 years old, now it's been replaced, that there's mobility and transportation and mass transit, God knows, schools, because let's not neglect social infrastructure. It's not, amen to the pipes. I've been saying at this table for a long time. Like, it's stupid of us to make housing plans when we haven't, replaced the 150-year-old infrastructure of gas and water underneath the streets, and we should be looking at that. But then we also, I would think, a comprehensive plan. I don't see the word social infrastructure. I'm not trying to bring up a new topic to debate, but that's really fundamental to what we should be discussing here. Right? Even though if we don't have clear jurisdiction over it, we can't control where the schools are, but I would love to have paid $6 million for some consultants to tell us how screwed are we by the PPS school closure plan, for example. There's that. I think you shouldn't respond to that. I just needed to get it off my chest. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Cargill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just be really brief, I promise. The comprehensive plan is or is not going to make a suggestion on inclusionary zoning citywide. Lyle,
I don't think we know that yet.
why don't you know that?
Is it fair to say that it's still being debated?
Well, I think
Well, it's
Or
being debated
discussed?
here, yes.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
As far as the recommendations that come out of the plan,
Yeah.
is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I'm sure there will be recommendations on how we try to get to affordability in our neighborhoods. And I think that is part of a lot of conversations that council has already had and I'm sure will continue to have. So
Well, here's
it
what
will
I'm
make
say.
recommendations
I
on
would
that.
leave that out of the plan. I would. You will lose votes at this table, okay? And obviously, if it comes back suggested that, you want to see inclusionary zoning citywide, it's a non-starter for me. What happens if we do not adopt this plan? Is it all for naught?
Right, and that's why it's important that we
Yeah,
work through
right.
this, right?
Yeah.
Right, that's
And
why I'm
so-
talking about IZ
so-
right now,
so
right?
That's a non-starter, then, the consultants that are working
that
on
would
it.
that would be devastating. To know that we spent $6 million and we can't adopt a plan. I will tell you right now, I can't adopt it. I will tell you that. And knowing what I know, what little I know about it, honestly, I can't. I could not vote for it. And the fact that you're going to have an opinion on inclusionary zoning, stay out of it. Stay out of it, please.
Well, and again, that's all, we're not asking, we don't have anything at this point for you to adopt. There's
But
so much
surely
work
you
left to
will
be
know
done.
if you plan on delving into that. No? Do you not know that?
I mean,
We will have a draft before you see it, and we will have a chance to go through this, but the process plays out. The consultants do their analysis, here's what their recommendations are, we do a read-through, and we work on a draft for you.
Okay, and you as the
And-
director, I'm asking you, Mr. Bay, tell them to stay away from that. It will cost you votes at this table, and I'd hate like hell not to adopt this plan. I really would. After spending all this money and not adopting it, it'd be crazy. It's just insane. So anyway, so I'm clear. Here's what I'd like from you today, okay? How much money did we spend? How much are we committed to of work that's already been done? And how much is left in the pot? And then please give me a suggestion as to how much money, and we don't have to go by this, it doesn't have to be your thought or your intent, but I want to know how much we can draw back in your opinion? Things that you have planned, or whatever company has planned, that we could say, well, maybe we could do that in-house. Maybe we don't need that as part of the plan. I would like a suggestion there from you, is what I would like.
So based on the outstanding deliverables.
Yep. So if it's $1 million, let me know how much you think we could carve out for vehicles or something that we're desperately going to need. Okay? So that's my only ask for today. And I would ask that you don't get involved in inclusionary zoning citywide. You're going to poison your own plan is what you're going to do. You understand? So I think it's pretty clear. At least half
That's
this council, you
more,
might lose.
that's more than fair.
Yep. Okay. Good deal. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any final words from any other members? If not, we are adjourned.